The crown prince of Beijing's elite circle fell for a blind nightclub singer who couldn't be bought by wealth. He was determined to ditch me, a financial prodigy, to protect his heir status. I restored the blind girl's sight and groomed her to be his caged canary. Upon regaining vision and learning the truth, she suffered depression and a miscarriage that left her permanently infertile. Years later, the young master took over the Lu Corporation and splurged 200 million to marry his one true love. Meanwhile, he personally pushed me off the rooftop. He said, "Your life for our child's life. Now we're even." When I opened my eyes again, the crown prince spared no expense to marry the blind girl. Of course I chose to step aside. I was the Lu family's child bride. He was the financial prodigy groomed through the Lu family's exhaustive investments. This was common knowledge within our circles. Whoever marries me inherits the Lu family legacy. Yet fate had other plans. Lu Yu failed to grasp this truth. He publicly professed his love to a blind woman who performed in nightclubs but never sold her body. He recklessly splurged money just to bring a smile to the blind woman's face. He would tell anyone who would listen, Qianqian remains untainted by the filth around her. Her pure smile alone washes away all the worldly shrewdness clinging to me. Mengchu is too clever by half. Her eyes are always brimming with schemes. It's just so grubby. At 1001 hashtag, that's why he was so determined to cast me aside. He even went so far as to kneel before Chairman Liu, begging to marry Song Qianqian. I was utterly humiliated. When I opened my eyes, I found myself sitting in a nightclub VIP room. Flanking me were my close friends from the industry. Song Qianqian sat at the piano, her tear-filled eyes brimming with grievance and resentment as her fingers danced across the keys. How dare she perform in public with such mediocre skills? She's nowhere near as good as Chu Chu. Lu Yu must be blind to fall for such a delicate little flower. By breaking off the engagement with you, he's essentially throwing away his inheritance to the Lu family fortune. I listened to my friends chatter in a daze. Song Qianqian finished playing her piece. She stood up, bowed to us in farewell, then felt for her white cane and made her way step by step toward the box door. With a click of the box door, Lu Yu pushed it open and entered. Song Qianqian lost her footing and tumbled off the stage. The fall immediately brought her to tears. Teardrops began falling one by one. Her pale face quivered, lips trembling faintly. Lu Yu happened to witness this scene, his handsome face tightening with a deep frown. He strode over to Song Qianqian, gathering her protectively in his arms with heartache evident in his eyes. Then, he swept his gaze across the group seated on the sofa. When his eyes landed on me, they unmistakably flashed with anger. "Mengchu, didn't I warn you to stay away from Qianqian? What do you think you're doing, ganging up on Qianqian with your friends?" I remained silent. My friend spoke up in my defense. "We were just here to have fun when she happened to be performing. She tripped over her own feet. How does that make us the bullies?" Lu Yu paid no heed to what others were saying. He only believed what he wanted to believe. Now his Qianqian was crying. At 1001 hashtag, someone had to take responsibility for this. Everyone seated here is from elite families, young mistresses and heirs of prominent circles. Each one is entangled in the intricate web of interests among these powerful clans. Yet I alone am just the Lu family's child bride, a girl raised to marry their son, nothing more than a loyal dog by Lu Yu's side. He confronted me as if it were his right. "Mengchu, come over here and apologize to Qianqian. In my past life, I did apologize." I stepped back and swallowed my pride. For the sake of Lu Yu and Song Qianqian, I even cast aside my self-respect. But what did it all come to in the end? Pushed off the rooftop by Lu Yu himself, shattered to pieces, I looked at Lu Yu and gave a faint smile, saying, "I was in the wrong today. I shouldn't have intruded on Miss Song's occasion." Lu Yu snorted coldly. "At least you know your place," I continued, "but a verbal apology is rather meaningless. Why don't I offer Miss Song a proper apology gift instead?" My friend seemed displeased and grabbed my arm to stop me. I reassured my friend and pulled out my phone. Then I promptly dialed Chairman Liu's number, addressing Lu Yu, Song Qianqian, and the assembled heirs of wealthy families with deliberate emphasis. "Chairman Liu, I've carefully considered your proposal. Since Lu Yu has no desire to marry me, let him be with Miss Song. The Lu Corporation's successor doesn't necessarily have to be him. I consent to marry your younger son Lu Jian instead. Let him be the designated heir." The words hung in the air. Silence fell over the private room. My friends were utterly stunned, almost wanting to give me a quiet round of applause. Lu Yu's face visibly paled. He even loosened his grip on Song Qianqian, leaving Song Qianqian without support. She nearly stumbled again. "Mengchu, what did you just say? You're going to marry Lu Jian, my uncle?" I nodded gently. "Yes. To make way for you and Miss Song, I'm willing to step aside." How do you like this generous gift, young Master Lu? He froze completely, stammering, but the heir, I smiled. Surely you're aware, young Master Lu, that Chairman Lu publicly declared that whoever becomes my husband will be the heir to the Lu Corporation. Since you don't want to marry me, naturally the position of heir won't be yours. He gritted his teeth with fierce determination. The friends around him curled their lips in smug satisfaction. After all, our Choo-Choo is the nation's foremost female stock market prodigy. The Lu Corporation's current success owes much to Choo-Choo's substantial contributions. If Choo-Choo hadn't been determined to repay Chairman Lu's upbringing, the Lu Corporation would have been hers long ago. Congratulations, young Master Lu, you finally won the beauty's heart. Don't forget to send the wedding invitation when the celebration comes. I wonder what dowry the Lu family will offer to marry this Miss Song, a woman who rose from the nightclub scene untainted, physically challenged yet strong-willed. With that, my friends gathered around me and we left the private room. The moment the private room door closed, we all heard the violent shattering of glasses and bottles from inside the room, along with a woman's terrified sobbing. Lu Yu used to treat you like dirt. Cutting ties with him completely is for the best. Lu Yu actually thought we hung out with you because of his influence. Today we finally showed him who's really in charge. Even Chairman Lu shows you the utmost respect. Who does Lu Yu think he is? We only tolerated Lu Yu out of respect for you. Now we don't have to pretend around him anymore. Tell him to get lost and stay far away from us. News of me breaking off the engagement with Lu Yu spread like wildfire through our social circle. It's widely acknowledged that Lu Yu is no longer the heir to the Lu Group. This stripped Lu Yu of the privileges he once enjoyed under the halo of being the Lu Group's successor. His card spending limits were imposed. The seasonal new releases he pre-ordered were no longer prioritized for him. His access to the VIP elevator at Lu Corporation has been revoked. He's begun to notice the disparity in his daily life, from clothing and meals to transportation and accommodations. Can you believe it? I saw Lu Yu waiting in line with a queue ticket at Cherie today. This is the same arrogant young master of the Lu family we used to know. Lu Yu got removed from the Equestrian Club's group chat because he couldn't afford the annual membership fee. Remember how Lu Yu custom ordered that handcrafted piano for the blind girl? Well, the piano's ready now. But he can't come up with the remaining millions. What a joke. Friends were sharing funny messages and photos in the group chat to cheer everyone up. I glanced at them, barely raising an eyebrow, completely unfazed. It just goes to show how foolish I used to be. I can't believe I actually had feelings for Lu Yu. Without lavish spending on appearances, Lu Yu is just like any other trust fund kid. He's just an idle loafer with nothing better to do. All he's got going for him is his pretty face. Lu Yu's mother showed up at my door with him in tow after all. The two sat across from me, one sipping tea with downcast eyes, the other glaring coldly. I remained silent, waiting for them to state their purpose. Mrs. Lu broke the silence first. After the old master took your call, he refused to see you anymore. I know you've been wronged in this matter, so we came today hoping to work out a compromise. Qian is with child now, and it's no longer appropriate for her to be out and about. Could you arrange a place for her and make sure she's looked after? As the Lu family heir, Yu really has no choice but to marry you. I'd appreciate if you could speak to the old master about this. He shouldn't keep locking horns with his own grandson. Mrs. Lu's tone was cool and detached. While nothing she said was technically wrong, it left a distinctly unpleasant feeling. In contrast, Lu Yu's words were far more direct. He produced a document. This is a prenuptial agreement. We'll have our assets notarized so when I divorce you, you won't get a single cent from the Lu family fortune. Furthermore, ours will be a marriage in name only. You need to inform Qian and make her believe she's the only one in my heart. Once I become the successor to the Lu family empire, you must immediately withdraw from the company, disappear from mine and Qian's lives, and go abroad. After signing this contract, you'll also need to find renowned specialists who can treat Qian's eye condition. I'll marry you only after her eyesight is restored. I looked at the predatory contract in my hands and retorted, what exactly do I get out of signing this? They froze in surprise. I pressed further. What exactly would I gain from marrying you, Lu Yu? Their brows furrowed. I let out a dry laugh. Marry you, make you the heir, hand over all the money, cars, and properties to you. Take care of Song Qian on your behalf, find renowned doctors for her, all that hustle and bustle, only to be cast aside and shipped off abroad. Sounds like I'd be worse off than some hired help. Lu Yu rose to his feet, looking down at me with unshakable confidence. At least you get to see me often, Meng Chu. I know you have feelings for me. Being graced with my frequent presence must feel like a blessing to you. My lips parted in stunned silence. Suddenly it dawned on me why all my tireless efforts for Luyu in my past life never earned a single word of gratitude. In his mind, merely permitting me to look upon him was considered a privilege. A privilege. I gritted my teeth and spat out those two words. After seeing them off with a polite smile, I posted the unedited video of Luyu and my mother showing up at my place today on my social media account. The post immediately garnered hundreds of likes on my social feed. Friends started asking if they could share it. I had no reason or excuse left to stop Luyu from becoming a laughingstock, and below the video, a caption was added, "Feel free to like, share, and subscribe." At 1001 hashtag. After 2 days of building up, surprisingly, the video even got picked up by a major influencer online. The massive influx of traffic instantly propelled this video to trending status. A blessing. Does he think he's God? No. He thinks he's the god of wealth. Everyone's supposed to be thrilled just seeing him. Hey, you're clearly insulting the god of wealth. The real deity would never be as stingy as Luyu, who pinches pennies till they scream. All his wealth, power, and status were earned by Meng Chu for him. How shameless to think he can keep her selflessly devoted just by relying on his pretty face. Hey sis, check me out. I'm a college guy, young, affordable, handy, and I know how to sweet talk, sis. I'm available too. I don't want money or power. I just want your cuddles, hugs, and to lift you up high. Teehee. In the end, the matter reached Luyu's father. Mr. Lu came to my office specifically to apologize, bowing at a full 90-degree angle. He also promised he would give me a proper explanation. That very same day, I heard that Mr. Lu had beaten Luyu so severely that he ended up in the ICU. When the ambulance arrived, Luyu was covered in blood and unconscious. But Luyu stubbornly refused to apologize to you, insisting that you, Meng Chu, were the one who should be apologizing. Lu's father was furious, and with his mother stirring up trouble, he declared he would no longer have anything to do with Luyu. Now Luyu can't even enter the Lu Corporation. His parents have frozen his cards, and everyone in their circle is waiting to see him become a laughingstock. Perhaps Luyu had offended too many people with his past arrogance and domineering attitude. Maybe the heirs of various conglomerates recognized my capabilities and sought to build connections with me. That's why I could always learn about Luyu's situation through various channels. Luyu was cast out from the Lu family. They're now living in Song Chanqian's rented apartment that costs 3,000 a month. Luyu couldn't bear to see Song Chanqian struggle, so he didn't allow her to work outside. Yet Luyu himself had grand ambitions. He looked down on entry-level jobs but couldn't climb to executive positions either. Now he's still draining Song Chanqian's savings while waiting for opportunities that never come. Song Chanqian is now pregnant, not only focusing on her prenatal care but also seeking out renowned doctors to treat her eyes, medical expenses, prenatal care costs, and daily living expenses for both of them all require money. Luyu is probably enduring hardships he has never experienced in his life. Even so, he gritted his teeth and stayed with Song Chanqian, refusing to compromise with the Lu family. But Song Chanqian wasn't quite as patient. She went to see Lu's mother, who secretly provided them with financial support. However, Lu's father soon found out and cut off the assistance from his wife. Their brief glimpse of hope was once again plunged into darkness, though Song Chanqian came from humble beginnings. Years of being pampered by Luyu had long since stripped her of any tolerance for hardship, so she came begging to me. At the Lu Corporation's new product launch event, a crowd of media reporters had gathered around. She knelt on the ground, clutching her white cane as tears streamed down her face like rain-soaked pear blossoms. Her lips trembled as she kept begging for my forgiveness, pleading with me to stop suppressing Luyu, bathed in camera flashes. Her delicate features made her appear utterly vulnerable. Seated in the executive chair, I looked like that ruthless businesswoman wielding corporate power like a villain. The camera lenses focused on me as reporters swarmed with questions. Is it true that President Meng ordered young Master Lu to be blacklisted? As Chairman Lu's current favorite, does the entire Lu conglomerate now have to follow your every whim? Are you destroying young Master Lu out of spite? Simply because you couldn't surpass a blind girl? Facing the reporters' well-prepared questions, I slightly furrowed my brow, but within 2 seconds, I let it go. It finally dawned on me that no matter how good a front old man Lu put up, he would never easily give up on his own son, Luyu. Today's product launch is absolutely crucial, with only internal staff privy to the location and timing. At 1001 hashtag. We've even implemented maximum security protocols to ensure the event proceeds without disruption. Yet Song Chanqian, a blind woman, somehow managed to slip through all barriers and burst into tears right in the venue, leaving me to face the journalist's relentless criticism. Someone must have deliberately steered things in that direction. Lu Yu is too proud and arrogant to stoop to such things. Mrs. Lu isn't clever enough for that. Mr. Lu has probably held a grudge against Chairman Lu for quite some time. Chairman Lu never had high hopes for Lu Yu to begin with. He simply thought that with my support, Lu Yu might eventually amount to something. Now I'm done with Lu Yu. Chairman Lu has given up on Lu Yu as well. For Chairman Lu, the Lu family isn't just about Lu Yu. He has another, more capable son named Lu Jian. But to old man Lu, Lu Yu was his only hope. Using Song Chanqian to stir up public opinion and throw me into the spotlight is probably just the first step in Lu Yu's father's plan. It's just that Lu Yu's father is still too foolish. There are many things in this world that won't simply go his way. I curled my lips into a faint smile and turned to Song Chanqian. I know no matter how much I explain today, people will still believe I'm solely responsible for Lu Yu's current predicament. But I've never done anything to harm the Lu Corporation. Things escalating to this point has taken me by surprise as well. So here's what I'll do. I resign as CEO of the Lu Corporation. That should give you the closure you need. I walked over to Song Chanqian and helped her to her feet. I enunciated each word clearly. By the way, I heard you two got married. Consider this my second wedding gift to you. I believe Lu Yu should be able to return to the Lu Corporation very soon. She stood there stunned, her lips pressed together slightly. Guess they never expected me to cave in so quickly. Oh, thank you, President Meng. I shook my head with a faint smile. No need, wishing you two a lifetime, together, forever. In my past life, Lu Yu was the one who killed me. Lu's parents and Song Chanqian were accomplices in my death. Once I realized this, I knew I would stop at nothing from that point on. That night, I went to see Chairman Lu. Chairman Lu was lying in bed, his features already growing indistinct. I spent some time reminiscing with him about the old days. During our conversation, he smiled twice. Every laugh tugged at the pain in his chest, sending him into fits of coughing. My eyes reddened slightly as I forced a smile. He seemed to detect the tremor in my voice. Don't waste your tears on an old man like me. Think of it this way, you're finally free of this mess. You should be happy. He found out about me resigning. Grandpa Lu, this is only temporary. Don't worry. I've never been worried about the Lu Corporation. I'm only worried about you, silly girl, getting taken advantage of. Lu Yu is useless. Lu Jian has better character. But he's too old, honestly. None of them are good enough for you. Thinking about how this elderly man before me would soon pass away, tears welled in my eyes as I pretended to be amused. Wait for Chairman Lu to fall asleep. I'm getting ready to leave the Lu residence. But as soon as I stood up, I saw a tall figure standing at the door. It was Lu Jian. He's back. I froze for a moment. Then saw his well-defined hand pull open the door as he gestured for me to enter. We descended the stairs one after the other. When we sat on the couch, he handed me a cup of red date and ginger tea, freshly brewed. Yeah, it's chilly out. Made it just for you. My palms grew warm, and the ginger tea felt even cozier as it settled in my stomach. When did you get back? When your father said I was too old for you, that I wasn't good enough. I froze, nearly spilling the ginger tea on my dress, but with lightning reflexes, he reached out and steadied the cup in my hands. Some scalding liquid splashed onto the back of his hand, leaving an angry red mark instantly. I immediately had someone bring the burn ointment. The nanny tried to apply it for him, but he kept his hands to himself, staring intently at me. It was that very gaze, the same one that had remained fixed on my tombstone long after my death in my previous life. My cheeks flushed as I took the burn ointment and settled beside him. Let me see your hand. He complied without hesitation, staring at his hand. Fragmented memories from after my death came flooding back. He was the one who claimed my body. He was the one who arranged my funeral. And again, it was him who alerted the police, leading them to identify Lu Yu as the murderer. But by then, Lu Yu had already risen to a position of immense power. For Lu Jian to take down Lu Yu was as difficult as scaling the heavens. So he threw caution to the wind and made the most perilous move, a mutual destruction where jade and stone would perish together. As he dragged Lu Yu into the sea of flames, he was smiling. A single tear fell onto the back of Lu Jian's hand, his brow furrowed slightly. I sniffled and asked him, when did you start having feelings for me? He paused, his soft voice gradually drifting into my ears. From the very first day the old master brought you back to the Lu family. I was only 10 years old at the time, of course, he was just 16 himself. I looked at him in surprise as he continued, but you always preferred playing with Lu Yu over me. memories came flooding back to me. 16-year-old Lu Jian asked me, "Why don't you like playing with me?" I replied with an innocent expression, "You're a big kid. I'm a little kid. Little kids only play with other little kids." The old man was right. I've grown somewhat old, and I'm not worthy of you. I wasn't worthy of you before, and I'm still not worthy now. But that Lu Yu guy isn't good enough for you either. Stop hanging out with him. Come have fun with me instead. I can totally pull off acting cute. His expression remained completely blank. Only a pair of slightly reddened eyes struggled to suppress that overwhelming possessiveness. I was startled, and the ointment in my hand fell to the ground. He lowered his gaze. His thin lips pressed together. When he spoke again, his voice was deep and hoarse, the corners of his eyes crimson. "I don't care what you say. You already promised your father you'd marry me. I went through all that prayer and fasting just to make this happen. You can't back out now." That was the same day. The old butler who had served by Lu Jian's side for over a decade told me, the reason Lu Jian fingered those prayer beads daily was simply to pray for me. In the past, he asked Buddha for my health and happiness. Now he asks Buddha for my hand in marriage. Lu Yu returned to the Lu Corporation and took over my position. Everyone in the circle is watching and waiting. No one has taken the initiative to befriend Lu Yu. He simply dismissed them as snobs and couldn't be bothered to associate with them. He was engrossed in rooting out those, my informants, within the organization, department head, team manager, project technology. Amid sweeping reforms, everyone in the company felt their position was at risk. Surprisingly, the laid-off colleagues were all quite relieved. Not only did they receive substantial severance packages, but they also brought their resource project contracts straight to me. I promptly handed the contracts over to Lu Jian. Along with these loyal veterans, Lu Jian welcomed each of them and assigned them to the most suitable positions. The compensation package they offered was significantly higher than what Lu Corporation used to provide. Within just a few months, at 1001 hashtag. For the first time in its history, Lu Corporation's financial reports showed negative growth. Both Lu Yu and his father believed this was a necessary sacrifice for innovation. They need to take a longer-term perspective. Some people just can't be hired, no matter how capable they are. But the individuals they're referring to are top executives who hold Lu Corporation's most critical secrets, all because they excel at their work and the company offers excellent compensation. Lu Yu and his father were convinced these people were in cahoots with me. They showed no regard for their feelings, nor for the sentiments of those beneath them. Companies obsessed with office politics spend more time on internal power struggles and less on developing business capabilities. After months of consecutive negative growth, Lu Yu finally witnessed the first loss in Lu Corporation's history. Dozens of profitable projects were dragged back to their performance levels from 3 years ago within just a few months under his watch. Upon closer investigation, he discovered that all their former business partners had been poached by Lu Jian's company. He went to confront Lu Jian. To his surprise, Lu Jian's office was filled with the veteran employees he had previously fired. In his astonishment, regret began to creep in. "I deeply regret that for the sake of petty savings. I failed to enforce non-compete agreements with these individuals. I have absolutely no regrets about firing those people back then." So at Lu Jian's company, he went on a rant, denouncing these former employees as opportunistic turncoats and cursing them to face dire consequences in the future. We're all human beings after all. There's absolutely no reason why he should be considered superior to others just because his surname is Lu, of course. No one was willing to back down and they hurled insults right back at him. "You're nothing but a figurehead CEO. Want me to show you how your own employees call you a fucking idiot behind your back? With the way you're cutting employee benefits, you'll only drive your staff away. With all this backstabbing and scheming every day, who has the energy to focus on actual business? Young Master Lu can keep playing his games. We'll be waiting for the day the Lu Corporation goes bankrupt." His vicious, contorted expression was posted online. Some savvy bloggers edited his ranting and cursing into viral clips relatable to overworked employees. This sent the Lu Corporation stock into a freefall, eventually hitting the daily limit down. It was at this point that I bought Lu Corporation stock at any cost. This brought a glimmer of hope to the Lu family. Lu Yu realized this situation couldn't continue any longer. He began setting his sights on heirs from other prominent families. But Lu Yu kept pulling these ridiculous stunts. No elite heir wanted anything to do with him. Occasionally I'd get invited to social gatherings by friends. That's where I ran into Lu Yu. He sat in the corner, completely ignored by everyone. Song Chanqian stayed by his side the whole time, chatting with him as if trying to cheer him up. But Lu Yu remained sullen and withdrawn. Occasionally, his gaze would drift in my direction. Chu made the right call leaving the corporate world. We've got the looks and the financial security, why put up with workplace nonsense? Chu without office attire is absolutely stunning, like a fairy descended from heaven, no offense, but have you considered entering the entertainment industry? I happen to run an agency that could pour resources into promoting you. What are you talking about? Does our Chu need your resources? The moment she appears on camera, all eyes will be on her. My friends never hold back their praise for me. Not to mention, I also have the status of being the fiancé of the rising star Lu Jian. In just a few days, the Lu Group, led by Lu Yu, has been declining day by day. Meanwhile, the global group, led by Lu Jian, is thriving and prospering. It's clear at a glance who's really in charge here. Song Qianqian listened to the chatter in the private room, biting her lip as she bowed her head, her self-esteem completely shattered. Someone suddenly called out Song Qianqian's name, Mrs. Lu. I just remembered your previous performance here. Would you mind playing a piece for us? We'd love to hear your heavenly voice. This is a classic case of flattering the powerful while stepping on the weak, common in these circles. Song Qianqian's entire body went rigid. Lu Yu frowned and glared at the person who made the suggestion. If you want to hear it, go play it yourself. Hey, come on, who doesn't know your wife performs in nightclubs for money? Why are you putting on airs here? Lu Yu grabbed a water glass and threw it. Who are you calling a performer for hire? A conflict was about to erupt. I spoke up to intervene. Since someone wishes to hear the piano, I'll play a piece. There's no need to trouble Mrs. Lu. Everyone was taken aback. I had already taken my seat at the piano. Fingers danced across the black and white keys, filling the room with enchanting melodies that captivated every listener. Astonishment was visible in everyone's eyes. I play the piano. I've competed in international competitions. She even won some awards. So when Lu Yu fell for a blind girl who could play the piano, I simply scoffed. After all, what's so impressive about playing the piano? I firmly believed that as the Lu family heir, Lu Yu didn't need a decorative accessory by his side. He needed someone who could actually help him climb the social ladder. But Lu Yu, what a fool. The song ended. Thunderous applause erupted. Yet in the corner, Lu Yu rose to his feet. Song Qianqian tried to take his hand, but Lu Yu shook her off. The moment her hand was rejected, she covered her face and sobbed, her whole body trembling. With a glint of admiration in his somber eyes, Lu Yu walked toward me. I furrowed my brow. There was a time when I loved it most when he looked at me like that. Now, it just makes me sick. Just then, a figure entered from the doorway and pulled me into an embrace. It's Lu Jian. I knew it was you playing the moment I heard the music. What a shame I arrived too late to witness your performance in person. A crisp fragrance drifted into my senses. I smiled faintly and said, no worries, buy me a piano, and I'll play for you any time at home. Lu Jian said tenderly, you promised. I want to hear it right now, a friend teased. Come on, President Lu, no need to be like this. Ever since Chu became your fiancé, we hardly get to see her. We just managed to meet up, and you're already taking her away. Lu Jian smiled faintly and said, truly, a moment apart from Chu feels like 3 years. The friends whistled, and the whistles directed attention to Lu Yu, who was standing nearby. Mr. Lu, are you worried someone might steal Chu away from you? Lu Yu's expression darkened. Lu Jian chuckled lightly. Chu knows her boundaries. She's not interested in married men, let alone second-hand goods. She's well aware I've stayed faithful to her all these years. Stayed faithful. So the reason you've never dated anyone is because of Chu. Wow. With a faint smile, Lu Jian tacitly agreed. My face flushed with embarrassment. All right now, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Lu Jian took my hand. Let's go take a look at the zither. He led me away from that place, but we had barely stepped out, when another figure emerged behind us. It was Lu Yu. Following behind Lu Yu was Song Qianqian, weeping as she stumbled around disoriented. Song Qianqian bumped into a wall, fell to the ground, and cried even more bitterly, but Lu Yu only frowned tightly, refusing to spare even a single glance in Song Qianqian's direction. I need to talk to Chu, Lu Yu said. Lu Jian narrowed his eyes. Chu, since when are you on such familiar terms? Lu Yu pressed his lips together, completely ignoring Lu Jian as he turned to me. Chu, I owe you an apology. I was wrong before, and I hope you'll give me another chance. Address her as aunt, Lu Jian retorted, as if deliberately challenging Lu Yu. Lu Yu gritted his teeth, looking as if he was determined to outdo Lu Jian. I smirked, pointing at the heavily pregnant Song Qianqian nearby, and said to Lu Yu, your wife is bleeding. I suggest you get her to the hospital immediately. It was at that moment, Lu Yu finally noticed the pool of bright red blood beneath Song Chanshan. Song Chanshan's water broke. Lu Yu frowned and impatiently dialed for an ambulance. Meanwhile, Lu Jian pulled me into an empty private room. Before I knew it, he pinned me against the wall. His lips brushed against my ear. A tingling sensation spread through my entire body. I could sense a subtle danger emanating from this man. Stay away from Lu Yu. His tone was full of command. I was displeased. The next second, he changed his tone and pleaded, "Please, don't show yourself in front of Lu Yu." I asked him, "Why?" He replied, "Men are all bastards, and men like Lu Yu are the worst. The harder something is to get, the more they want it. Once that foolish obsession of his fades, he'll probably realize what he's truly lost. Just now, he was practically dying to confess his feelings for you right in front of me." I chuckled softly. "What about you? Are you a bastard too? Would you lose interest once you've gotten what you wanted?" At 1001 hashtag, he nibbled on my earlobe, gently sipping. Then, in a low, husky voice, came the words, "I'm not cheap." My fingers wove through his dark hair. With playful teasing, I asked, "Didn't you just say you've been saving yourself for me?" He paused. I tugged at his collar, pressing my lips to his skin. "Mind if I take a look at your jade-like neck?" A blush spread across his cheeks. His eyes burned crimson. Lids lowering over his gaze, shirt buttons went flying everywhere. A few even hit me in the face. When my hand brushed against his waist, I was startled too. The size was quite astonishing. In a fleeting moment, a faint stir outside the door, the wail of an ambulance, the sound of a crowd surging out. Amid the fading clamor, Lu Yu's voice persisted, calling my name over and over, lost in sweetness. I was swept away by the kisses, so much so that when the private room door swung open, I was completely caught off guard. It was Lu Jian who draped clothing over me, shielding me from the view outside. Outside the door, Lu Yu's eyes widened in disbelief. You're actually together." Lu Yu was being ridiculous. "What's so strange about me being with my fiancé, Meng Chu? You clearly love me the most. How could you be with my uncle?" Lu Yu's shriek was unsettling. He seemed intent on barging in to ruin Lu Jian's moment. Good thing Lu Jian had some training. After settling me on the sofa, he knocked Lu Yu to the ground in just a few moves. But that wasn't enough for him. As he carried me away, he spat at Lu Yu with particular venom. "What a piece of work. What a fool I was. We never appreciate what we have until it's gone. Regret only comes after loss." Song Chanshan gave birth to a baby boy. The boy was born with a congenital eye condition. Although the doctor explained the condition wasn't necessarily inherited from the mother, yet Mr. and Mrs. Lu, along with Lu Yu, placed the entire blame on Song Chanshan. Due to her blindness, she could never manage to care for the child on her own. Fearing that Song Chanshan's constant weeping would bring bad luck to the child, Lu's mother simply forbade her from seeing the baby. This only made Song Chanshan cry even more intensely. She wept at home. She wept at work. She even broke down in tears right in front of reporters and the media. This caused the Lu Corporation stock, which had just started to recover, to plummet again. Seizing the opportunity, I bought up a significant amount of shares, making me the largest shareholder of the Lu Corporation. Lu Jian often asks me when I plan to make my move. I always say there's no rush. He can't wait to see Lu Yu fail. But my concern is Chairman Lu. The elderly man doesn't have much time left as it is. Hearing about such major changes at Lu Corporation would likely only hasten his passing. I just never expected it. My inaction actually hastened Chairman Lu's passing. That scoundrel Lu Yu, seeing the Lu Group struggling to make ends meet, tried to force the sale of the company and all its subsidiaries. Fortunately, Lu Jian caught wind of it in time. Otherwise, Chairman Lu's lifelong work would be completely destroyed. Lu Yu was ousted by the board of directors, as the majority shareholder. I returned to the Lu Group's board and regained control of the company. As the Lu Group's stock prices soared, my marriage to Lu Jian was finalized. He covered the entire city with red roses for me. He booked every available drone in the city to perform an aerial marriage proposal for me. Amidst the blessings of the whole city, I stepped into the wedding car and entered the church. Old Master Lu passed away on my wedding night. The following day, Lu Jian held a funeral for the late Mr. Lu. The funeral was a grand affair. The entire city came to pay their respects. However, while the Lu residence was empty, Lu Yu broke in and stole the chairman's personal assets. When we caught him, he still stubbornly insisted that he was only there to look for his grandfather's belongings and that it wasn't theft at all. But with both witnesses and material evidence present, there was no room for his excuses. Lu Yu was sentenced to 3 years in prison. During those 3 years, Lu's parents came to me several times with Song Chanqian and the child with eye disease, begging me to let Lu Yu off, but I'm no judge. How could I possibly absolve Lu Yu of his crimes? They were thrown out of the Lu residence. The next time I heard about them, 3 years had already passed. After his release from prison, Lu Yu discovered his visually impaired child had autism. Song Chanqian couldn't stand being ordered around by Lu's mother any longer. Nor could she endure such impoverished living conditions. She eventually returned to working at a nightclub, thanks to the untainted by filth reputation Lu Yu had crafted for her. Quite a few wealthy businessmen expressed interest in becoming her sugar daddy. Left with no other choice, she reluctantly agreed, but after all, he was blind. The wealthy businessman wasn't a fool either. He had his fun and then dropped her. Only she remained lost in the memory of those days when Lu Yu treated her like a princess, constantly being kept as a mistress while endlessly weeping about her miserable fate. After Lu Yu returned, Song Chanqian thought her life would finally get better, but when Lu Yu learned about Song Chanqian's disgraceful behavior over the past 3 years, he started abusing her daily. Song Chanqian wanted a divorce. Not only did Lu Yu refuse, but he also sold Song Chanqian off to a madam at a hostess club. When she was just a kept woman, she could still cling to her pride, but now, forced into prostitution, even that last shred of dignity was utterly shattered by Lu Yu. Seeing their son in such a state, old Mrs. Lu and old Mr. Lu were utterly disheartened. With their grandson also in a pitiable condition, they could no longer bear the burden. In the end, they abandoned their son, grandson, and daughter-in-law, choosing to live out their remaining years relying solely on their meager pension. But Lu Yu wasn't so easily shaken off. It didn't take long for the elderly couple to be tracked down by Lu Yu, once again becoming prey to their own son and grandson who drained them dry. As for Song Chanqian, ultimately unable to endure such an existence, she threw herself into the sea one morning, ending her own life. Many more years had passed. Lu Jian was playing with his child by the seaside. A shabbily dressed homeless man walked past us. With just one glance, I recognized the homeless man. He seemed to recognize me too. He rushed up to me, shouting choo-choo. To protect me and our child, Lu Jian called security to drag him away. The next day, we heard the vagrant had jumped into the sea, and his body was never recovered. Lu Jian accidentally discovered that the homeless man who jumped into the sea was none other than Lu Yu. His handsome brows furrowed. He cursed under his breath, "What a pathetic bastard." End. Story 2. Before the college entrance examination, I secretly took the love letter the school beauty wrote to my childhood sweetheart, which led to them not getting together. He hated me for a lifetime. Even after discovering my secret crush on him, he said I was jealous and vicious, and that he would never like me. Later, we died in a car accident. Before dying, he said that if he could do it all over again, he begged me not to ruin his good relationship with the school beauty. As he wished, this time around, I didn't take the love letter, and then, in order to enter the same school as the school beauty, he gave up the multiple choice questions in the comprehensive science exam. 1. After the college entrance examination results were announced, Gu Fei and Jiang Chuyan got together. At the graduation party, his romantic act of giving up the multiple choice questions in the comprehensive science exam for love spread widely, and he was called the god of pure love. I sat in a dim corner with a wine glass in my hand, looking at the two people surrounded by the crowd in the center, and took a sip of the juice in the glass. My best friend Song Xiao, who was beside me, was greatly shocked and couldn't understand. Is he crazy? He cut off his own future with his own hands, just for this uncertain future with Jiang Chuyan. Yes, this time, he chose Jiang Chuyan over his future. In the previous life, I secretly took the love letter before the college entrance examination to help him choose his future. But what I got was his hatred for a lifetime. Even after discovering my secret crush on him, he said to me with extreme disgust, "Wen Qian, I'm not interested in jealous and vicious people. Your love makes me sick." In fact, I didn't hide the love letter from him. Instead, I returned it to him on the night after the college entrance examination. But when he took the love letter to find Jiang Chuyan, what he got was a rejection. "Gu Fei, our grades are so different. We won't be in the same school at all. How can we be together? Be apart for 4 years. The boyfriend I need is someone who can be by my side anytime and anywhere. Can you do that?" After the dejected Gu Fei came back, he gave me a cold look. The next day, his parents hurriedly came to me and said that Gu Fei planned to change the target university he had already decided on. and asked me to persuade him. I wasn't too surprised, but before I could say anything when I found Gu Fei, his eyes fell on me and he sneered, "What, stealing the love letter once wasn't enough, Wen Qian, do you want to come and ruin it again?" Standing at the stairway where the wind was blowing, although it was a sunny day, it was a bit cold. I looked down at him, who was decadent and irritable, and only said one sentence, "Gu Fei, it took you a full 12 years to get to where you are today." In the end, under the threat of his parents with their lives, Gu Fei gave up changing his volunteer, and he still didn't get to be with Jiang Qiuyan. Since then, I became the chief culprit who prevented him from being with Jiang Qiuyan and the target of his venting whenever he felt frustrated thinking about it. Until the last moment of his life, he was still resentful of me. In the bloody and pungent car, he begged hoarsely, "If I could do it all over again, Wen Qian, please don't think you know best and interfere to ruin our fate." So after being reborn, as he wished, I didn't take the love letter before the college entrance examination. Gu Fei smoothly saw the love letter, saw that Jiang Qiuyan said she liked him too, but was worried that the gap was too big and they couldn't make it together, so she hadn't responded for a long time. And then he directly cut off his own retreat without leaving any room for maneuver. He gave up the multiple choice questions in the comprehensive science exam. He scored more than 100 points less than in the previous life. Finally, he successfully narrowed the gap with Jiang Qiuyan and got together with her. After several rounds of drinking, someone suddenly mentioned me, with a tone of emotion. At first, I thought Wen Qian would be the one to be with Gu Fei. After all, the two are childhood sweethearts and evenly matched, but Gu Fei immediately refuted it himself. Probably worried that Jiang Qiuyan would misunderstand, he said distantly, "Just ordinary friends who have known each other since childhood." I smiled silently and silently recited these 4 words: "Ordinary friends, too." But Gu Fei was right. We really have known each other since childhood. From the start of school to high school graduation, we were always in the same class, apart from my parents. The person who spent the most time with me was probably Gu Fei. I've seen him stay up all night to solve a problem, and he's seen me in a miserable state of still taking an exam with a fever of 40 degrees. No one knows better than us how much effort is needed behind the top 3 rankings that everyone says come so easily. On the day we entered high school with the first and second highest scores in the city, Gu Fei pointed to the first 2 photos on the honor roll of the college entrance examination on the publicity board and asked me, "In 3 years, it will be us here, Wen Qian, do you have confidence?" Behind the young man was the setting sun's glow on a summer evening, rich and gorgeous. In my ears was the ear-piercing cicada chirping, full of vitality. I held my books and looked at him sideways. "Gu Fei, it's a deal." At that time, what we saw in each other's eyes was all the longing for the future, the desire for our ideals, and the determination to succeed. But soon, there was Jiang Qiuyan in Gu Fei's eyes. During that high school period when most students were slaving away for their dreams, Jiang Qiuyan was uniquely beautiful. At the cultural festival not long after the start of school, Jiang Qiuyan, wearing a white dress, stood in the center of the stage, like a bright moon falling. The hazy halo blurred everything around her. Only she alone entered the eyes of everyone present. After that night, Jiang Qiuyan's name spread throughout every class and became the white moonlight in the hearts of many teenagers. Gu Fei was one of them. The first time I noticed something was wrong was when he came back from delivering test papers for the math teacher to the next class. He sat in his seat with a slightly red earlobe. The test paper in front of him remained there for 4 evening self-study sessions, but he only wrote 1 question on the draft paper filled with dense calculation formulas. 3 inappropriate words appeared. Jiang Qiuyan, although he drew many horizontal lines over them with a pen, it couldn't cover the traces at all. Later, I heard that when he went to deliver the test papers, Jiang Qiuyan from the next class flirted with him. She accidentally bumped into Gu Fei's arms and hugged him while playing around with her friends, and Gu Fei, who was hugged, was stunned for a moment and then only said with a straight face, "Be careful." Jiang Qiuyan just looked at him and smiled. "Sorry, top student. Oh, and you're really handsome." Suddenly, there was a burst of hubbub around. Gu Fei, who had always been calm, reserved, and never showed his emotions, was flustered. Gu Fei and I were somewhat similar in character to a certain extent. We were rational and clear-headed, as calm as warm water, while Jiang Qiuyan was emotional and passionate, like an effervescent tablet thrown into warm water. And it was a beautiful effervescent tablet, so I wasn't surprised at all that Gu Fei was attracted to her. Just like in many idol dramas and novels, the personalities of the male and female protagonists are contrasting, and it is always publicized that people are attracted to those who are different from themselves. There are so many examples, such as the domineering president and the Cinderella, the top student and the underachiever, or the aloof flower and the warm little sun. At that time, I thought that even if Gu Fei was tempted, he should still understand what was most important, but he, who had always been calm, composed, and sensible, still rebelled for Jiang Chuyan once. 3. I actually didn't know how he got familiar with Jiang Chuyan. After all, being trapped in the heavy schoolwork every day left me with no time to spare. The most I talked to him about were the solutions to this problem, the answers to that problem, or whether we were ready for this exam. When I realized that he and Jiang Chuyan were getting closer and closer, Jiang Chuyan was already calling him bookworm and top student very skillfully, and Gu Fei's reaction clearly showed that he was already used to it. I started to notice that Gu Fei would leave for half an hour every noon to teach Jiang Chuyan problems, and he would suddenly have something to do every weekend morning to participate in the small gatherings organized by Jiang Chuyan. I knew that Gu Fei had fallen in love with her, but this couldn't make me stop and focus on their gradually deepening relationship. I continued to study hard, until the national physics competition in the second year of high school. The school had to select one student to participate through layers of screening. In the last round of the 5-to-1 selection, Gu Fei didn't come, because Jiang Chuyan had a fever and fainted. After sending her to the hospital, at her request, Gu Fei chose to stay and accompany her in the hospital for the whole afternoon. I don't know how to describe my feelings at that time. I only remember that when I ran to the hospital to find him, all my emotions finally turned into a puzzled cry. Gu Fei, he leaned against the hospital corridor, with a calm expression, and only said one sentence. I've lived a rule-abiding life for so many years, I always have to rebel once, right? So he gave up the painstaking preparations he had made for so long and forgot about the nights when he had brushed questions while sick time and time again. At that time, looking at the handsome and elegant young man in front of me, I felt a moment of unfamiliarity, and even a trace of inexplicable tears welled up. However, I didn't say anything, but I knew very well that Gu Fei's behavior was not a good sign, so when he was about to face the second choice, I made the choice for him in advance. I took the love letter that Jiang Chuyan gave him on the eve of the college entrance examination. Before that, I had actually prepared for Gu Fei to confess his love to her after the college entrance examination and then the two of them getting together. I had also prepared to send my blessings. However, I didn't expect that on the way to the meeting for the top 100 students in the grade, when I went back to the classroom to get my notebook, I would run into Jiang Chuyan putting the love letter. In the empty classroom, she stood beside Gu Fei's seat, talking to her friend. The general meaning of the conversation could be summarized as, the reason she got close to Gu Fei was a bet with her friend to chase after Gu Fei, the top student in the grade, but during this process, she really fell in love with him. However, she felt that the gap was too big and they couldn't enter the same school, and she didn't want to be in a long-distance relationship. So even though she knew Gu Fei liked her, she always emphasized that the two of them were just classmates. Writing the love letter was to show her hope of going to the same university as him and also her intention to be with him. Before, I could be certain that Gu Fei would never give up his future for anything or anyone, but at that moment, I wasn't sure. To prevent that 1% possibility, after they left, I went in and took the love letter, countless times after that. When facing Gu Fei's sarcasm, I would repeatedly think about whether I was wrong back then. Once I tried to communicate with him calmly. Gu Fei, even if you had seen it in advance, what could you have done? Were you really going to give up your future just to be with her? He sneered and interrupted me with certainty. When Qian, I would. I looked at him and was silent for a while. Finally, I smiled softly. For the first time, I realized that I was indeed wrong, terribly wrong. 4. As the party was coming to an end, Jiang Chuyan, holding Gu Fei's arm, walked up to me and raised her glass to me with a beaming smile. Wen Qian, you've accompanied Gu Fei for 18 years. No matter how ordinary the relationship is, it's different from others. So, you will also bless us, right? I looked at the young man beside her, wearing a black t-shirt with a relaxed expression, and smiled and politely corrected her statement. I didn't accompany Gu Fei for 18 years. We just happened to be on the same road and walked together for 18 years. In the future, we won't be on the same road anymore. There are already so many people blessing you for happiness and a good life today. You don't need one more from me. I wish you a bright future. I was sincere. After all, we all came from ordinary families. After years of hard study, who wasn't striving for a good future? in the previous life, after Gufei entered a top-tier university. He became the favorite student of the most prestigious professor in the physics department. He got to know a group of respected teachers and made countless like-minded friends. With the best resources in the country, he advanced with high spirits in his favorite physics research. The name Gufei repeatedly appeared in academic journals, and his figure could be seen talking eloquently at research conferences. His future was bright. The only regret was probably Jiang Qiuyan. His former white moonlight, that was his obsession for a lifetime. At occasional class reunions, when people mentioned her, it was always about who she was with, who she broke up with, or which rich second generation had confessed to her with a large amount of money. The last time I heard news about her was during the spring festival. She was going to get married. That night, Gufei drank himself drunk with his friends. When he came back, he knocked on my door, coincidentally. My parents were not at home. As soon as I opened the door, he rushed in and taunted me with a fierce look. Wen Qian, you must be very happy now, right? She's getting married. Are you satisfied? I stood quietly beside the sofa and listened to him vent. Then I poured him a glass of warm water. Drink some water. He didn't take it. In fact, after so many years, I was also tired, looking at his appearance as he gradually fell asleep after being overly emotional. I casually covered him with a blanket. After returning to the bedroom, I received gossip news from Song Xiao through her intricate WeChat moments. It is said that Jiang Qiuyan's fiancé is a nouveau riche. He fell in love with her at first sight at a friend's birthday party. Jiang Qiuyan had a boyfriend during the pursuit. At first, she didn't agree. Later, the nouveau riche started to spend money on her until she was willing to break up. I looked down at it in silence. Suddenly, I really wanted to know what the final outcome would be if Gufei had really given up his future for Jiang Qiuyan back then. Originally, I thought I would never know the direction of the other choice. Unexpectedly, I would go back to the past and everything would start over. Gufei finally got what he wished for. Looking at the two people who had returned to the center of the crowd and were being coaxed to kiss, I finished the juice in my glass and then turned around and left. I had hypothesized about the choice countless times before. Gufei's imagination was always that even if he and Jiang Qiuyan entered the same school, he could still reach the same height with his own abilities. In fact, no one could know the final answer. But, Gufei, I'll be waiting and seeing. 5. This time around, except for Gufei's choice, nothing has changed. I still entered the same university as in the previous life with the same score and was admitted to the mathematics department I liked. During the entire holiday before leaving for school, I didn't see Gufei again. Because he accompanied Jiang Qiuyan on a graduation trip, I found a part-time job tutoring junior high school students. Occasionally, when I went out and ran into Gufei's parents, I could see the bitter smiles on their faces when they greeted me and a few silver hairs in their black hair. I thought that they probably would never know why Gufei, who had never fallen out of the top 3 and was hard-working and talented, suddenly performed poorly in the college entrance examination. They were even worried that he would be too sad, so they would try every means to comfort him, force a smile in front of him, and let him go on a trip to relax for a moment. I didn't know which would be more bearable for them, knowing the truth or never knowing the truth, but looking at them, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness in my heart. After all, apart from my parents, they were the elders who had the most contact with me and watched me grow up. 6. For years can change a lot of things. The once green and tender teenagers and girls have now become mature and steady, talking about their plans for the future, sharing the competitions they participated in, and exchanging the job offers they received. They all have the halo of prestigious universities on their heads and have won numerous awards. Although they haven't entered society yet, their futures are promising. Because of the traffic jam, I arrived the latest. As soon as I entered the door, I was enthusiastically pulled into the center of the crowd. Due to similar experiences, I quickly joined the conversation. Just as I was gracefully communicating with them about my life in the past 4 years, someone suddenly pointed at me and pretended to be angry, saying, "You don't know, in our sophomore year, several universities jointly held a debate competition. Coincidentally, when Qian and I became opponents, at that time, we were overwhelmed by her complete logical loop. It was really, I didn't feel the friendship of my former classmates at all." I smiled at him and said, "You're too kind." He still didn't let me go and continued to tease. "I didn't expect that, Wen Qian, you always used to be quiet and gentle, but on the debate stage, you were extremely rational, pressing step by step and not giving an inch. I'm curious, do you act like this when you quarrel with your boyfriend?" This remark caused a burst of laughter. Then, someone seemed to suddenly remember something and turned to look at Gu Fei, asking him, "Hey, why isn't Jiang Qiuyan here, our god of pure love? Didn't the school beauty come with you?" It was only then that I saw Gu Fei, who had been sitting in the corner of the private room without speaking. Like the others, he had also changed a lot. The humility and confidence in his eyes in the past had now completely dissipated. How should I put it? Although he was still quiet and reserved, sitting here now, he seemed a bit out of place. It was as if he was an ignored outsider. Those teenagers who had once enviously called him the god of pure love had now become young people who had received better resources and seen a bigger world. When this topic was brought up again, there seemed to be a somewhat subtle feeling. There was a faint hint of mockery and a sense of watching a joke in everyone's words. After all, he used to be the most powerful among these people. Now he didn't even have a topic to participate in the discussion. Song Xiao held a wine glass and sighed softly behind me. Sure enough, reality is reality, different from idol dramas. For years after a frame in an idol drama, perhaps the male protagonist would achieve great success after a counter-attack. But in reality, Gu Fei now was neither more handsome nor more successful. He was no match for anyone present. After all, a person's success cannot be completely attributed to their own efforts, platform, resources, connections, talent, opportunities. Environment. Each of these is an essential condition, so the Gu Fei who was once famous in the physics world was now almost unknown. I wasn't surprised. Gu Fei, who was suddenly asked, was stunned for a few seconds and then looked at me. His Adam's apple rolled up and down, and he said in a very calm tone, "We broke up, 7, a few days after the party. My best friend Song Xiao came to share with me the gossip she had heard about Gu Fei and Jiang Qiuyan, shortly after they entered the university." Under Jiang Qiuyan's training, Gu Fei not only mastered the skills of taking pictures, retouching pictures, and choosing lipsticks, but also fought with other boys for Jiang Qiuyan. I remembered that during that time, I indeed saw on WeChat moments that Gu Fei, who used to only occasionally forward physics-related information, would post some photos or videos of Jiang Qiuyan every 2 or 3 days. At that time, I thought that true love could really change a person. However, when the passionate love period ended and they entered the plain water period, Gu Fei began to be busy with his professional courses, and Jiang Qiuyan met more people in various activities. The two of them would occasionally have differences of opinion due to some disagreements. Jiang Qiuyan disliked that Gu Fei didn't have time to accompany her because of the competition and frequently asked Gu Fei, who was concentrating on preparing for the competition, to accompany her out. And Gu Fei didn't understand the first cup of milk tea in autumn that Jiang Qiuyan needed. He didn't understand why that particular cup of milk tea, which could be bought every day, had a different sense of ceremony. The minor disagreements that were not serious but accumulated more and more. The final result was a cold war. The more Song Xiao talked, the more excited she became, with a somewhat cold and indignant tone. Once upon a time, what was the truth and love in that so-called true love? When the novelty wears off, there will only be more and more contradictions. Moreover, not only did they meet more outstanding people, but there was also a real sacrifice on one side in their relationship. This invisible bomb only needs a fuse. So when Jiang Qiuyan was pursued by a rich and handsome second generation, she became increasingly dissatisfied with Gu Fei. After all, the biggest halo on him back then was the first ranking, but in a bigger world, grades were no longer the only criterion for measurement. Regarding the gradually fading relationship and Jiang Qiuyan's subtle dislike, Gu Fei finally couldn't help but mention that he gave up the multiple-choice questions in the comprehensive science exam for her in the college entrance examination. But what he got was just a taunt from Jiang Qiuyan. "For me, Gu Fei, that was your own choice, wasn't it? Don't blame me for the result of your choice just because you're not satisfied." When it came to this, the relationship was completely torn apart. Soon, the two broke up, and Jiang Qiuyan seamlessly connected with the rich second generation. So far, a love story with the labels of school beauty, top student, and giving up scores and full of legendary colors came to an end. I casually flipped through the magazine and lazily responded to Song Zhao's passionate speech. "Oh, really?" She was quiet for a few seconds and then suddenly sighed faintly. "To be honest, as a friend who was in the same class as him for 6 years, I'm really disappointed and regretful for him. Even if he had taken the exam seriously and made a choice when filling out the college entrance examination application after the scores came out, did he really have to cut off all his retreats? I really want to know if he regrets his choice now." That love for which he could give up scores only lasted for 4 years after all. I smiled and calmly said, this was his own choice, whether he regrets it or not. No one will bear the consequences for him anymore. 8. However, in the previous life, under his daily resentment and disgust, I really regretted it. At that time, because of our studies and work, we lived in the same city and were both in the academic circle. Inevitably, there were various intersections, whether deep or shallow. After going home, due to our parents, we maintained a superficial harmony and some dignity, but every time we met, I was almost always faced with his cold sarcasm. I thought about it. His hatred for me probably reached its peak when he discovered my secret crush. I have had the habit of keeping a diary since I was a child, because I spent the most time with Gu Fei. There were the most contents about him in the diary. It recorded that we went hiking together. He carried me home when I sprained my ankle. When I overslept and was late in the morning, he would stand in punishment with me. When I forgot to bring my book, he would hand me his book. We went to the library together on weekends, represented the school in various competitions together, comforted each other when our rankings dropped in exams, and also argued endlessly about the solution to a problem. Everything between Gu Fei and me was trivial and ordinary. There was no experience that would cause a large emotional fluctuation, so at first, I didn't realize that I had fallen in love with him. It was only until the day he pointed to the photos on the publicity board and asked me if I had confidence that I belatedly realized that between the lines on each page of the previous diaries, there was a revelation of my love for him. I liked his attitude of striving hard to achieve his ideals, liked the way his eyes shone when facing difficult problems. And also liked it when I was discouraged and had the idea of giving up. He would look at me with a serious gaze and ask me, so, are you going to stop here, Wen Qian? So that night, for the first time, I wrote in my diary, I like Gu Fei, I like Gu Fei, but later, Jiang Chuyan appeared and got closer and closer to Gu Fei. After all, I didn't have much contact with her. The only connection between us was Gu Fei. So in the diary, I only mentioned her once and wrote one sentence, Gu Fei. He likes Jiang Chuyan. After that, because of the love letter incident, the relationship between Gu Fei and me became more and more tense. Every argument was consuming my love. Just as the heartbeat that started without knowing when, the end also had no source. I originally thought that the secret crush on him would never be known. I didn't expect that he would see my diary when my dad called him to help install the newly bought bookshelf. To this day, I can still clearly remember the mocking look in his eyes when he held up the diary and looked at me. He asked me coldly, you like me, right? I looked at the diary in his hand, was silent for a moment, and then frankly admitted, yes, I used to. Probably my overly calm appearance was a bit irritating to him. He suddenly threw the diary at me forcefully and angrily questioned, so you had to take that love letter. The hard cover page scratched across my cheek, and it hurt a bit. At this moment, I suddenly realized that in fact, I no longer liked him. Facing the diary that was casually thrown down by him and contained my past heartbeats, I wasn't sad at all. I just picked up the diary that had fallen on the ground, wiped it, and seriously apologized to him. I'm sorry, Gu Fei, I shouldn't have taken that love letter. I shouldn't have delayed your fate, and I shouldn't have liked you without permission. He still wasn't satisfied. He turned his head and snorted softly before turning around and leaving behind those words that I remembered deeply, jealous and vicious. To be honest, although I liked him at that time, compared to that shallow love, what I cherished more was the friendship of walking side by side, so the purpose of taking the love letter was never to prevent him from being with Jiang Chuyan. I just hoped that he could get a score that matched the efforts of the past 12 years without being affected. So I delayed the choice he faced for a few days. I never envied Jiang Chuyan either. I always understood that feelings couldn't be forced, so if he and Jiang Chuyan got together, I would send my blessings, and then continue to move forward on my own path. I wasn't inseparable from Gu Fei. 9 now. It can be considered that the wrong track in the previous life has been corrected back to the right direction, and I am on the path I should have originally taken. Although I didn't take that love letter again after being reborn, I didn't deliberately distance myself from Gu Fei in this life either. At least before the college entrance examination, everything was the same as in the previous life. However, after all, we lived in different circles for 4 years, so when we met at the party until the end, we didn't have a single conversation. This kind of drifting apart relationship actually had no impact on me. So I didn't take the initiative to seek him out to ease the situation. Until his mother was hospitalized due to illness, I was taken by my mother to visit her. After putting down the fruits we brought, I sat down in the ward filled with the smell of disinfectant and listened for a while to the chit-chat between my mother and Gufei's mother. Then I went outside to answer a phone call. When I went back, I met Gufei beside the flower bed. He was wearing a black coat, with an inescapable look of fatigue and boredom between his brows, and a half-lit cigarette between his fingertips. This familiar expression made me stunned for a moment. In the previous life, when he was blocked in his research project or when he tried hard to win back Jian Chuyen but failed, he had this kind of expression. At that time, although he was in the limelight, he still made unknown efforts behind the scenes. The academic path was ultimately difficult and lonely. As for winning back Jian Chuyen, after achieving certain achievements, Gufei actually went to look for her and indeed re-established contact with her. But at that time, almost all of Gufei's connections, resources, and social circles were in the city where his university was located, and he spent most of his time in the laboratory. So compared with those rich second generation who were also pursuing Jian Chuyen and had both money and leisure, his advantages were not great. In the end, after he courted her for half a year, Jian Chuyen still rejected him, making a perfect exit from his life. From then on, the bright moon hung high and was no longer attainable, and the charge of me taking the love letter to hinder their relationship also accompanied him for a lifetime. After all, in his opinion, if he and Jian Chuyen had been in the same school and stayed together back then, the ending would definitely have been different. Now, looking at him sitting here, I don't know why he has such an expression again. The moment our eyes met, he extinguished the cigarette between his fingers, then he stood up and walked towards me with a calm expression. His voice was hoarse after smoking, a bit dry. I didn't have time to say hello last time we met. Wen Qian, you've changed a lot. You've become more beautiful and more outstanding. He paused, and then apologized to me with a somewhat guilty look. I was naive back then, because I was worried that she would misunderstand and afraid that our relationship would be affected. I classified our relationship as ordinary friends. I really wasn't mature enough. I quietly waited for him to finish, and then smiled at him calmly and responded generously. It doesn't matter, Gufei. We were originally just ordinary friends. What else could we be? His expression stiffened slightly and then dimmed. He looked towards the setting sun that was gradually disappearing in the sky, laughed self-deprecatingly, and said with a sense of loss, actually, later I thought countless times about what it would be like now if I hadn't seen that love letter back then. I followed his words and said in a somewhat indifferent tone, that's impossible. The love letter was placed there, and it was impossible for you not to see it. He suddenly turned his head to look at me. What if someone took it away? I was stunned for a moment. Before I could speak, I heard him ask again, Wen Qian, if you had seen it in advance, would you have taken it? I looked carefully at his eyebrows and eyes, trying to find something, but there was nothing, so I calmly shook my head. No, I wouldn't. We averted our eyes in silence. He suddenly smiled, as if he had finally let out a sigh of relief, and said several times as if he was glad, that's good, that's good. Then he added, after the breakup, I always had the same dream over and over again. I dreamed that in the year of the college entrance examination, you took the love letter in advance, and in the end, I didn't get to be with her, and I hated you for a lifetime. Finally, we died in a car accident that I caused. The warmth of the blood was so real, as if it had really happened. I made a sound and planned to return to the ward. I said to him gently, it's all fake. Don't worry about it. 10, but I knew that it was real. The car accident happened on Jian Chuyen's wedding day. Before that, we were invited back to our high school alma mater to participate in an alumni association. Our former head teacher asked us to shoot a growth-themed video with the theme of Always on the Road for the younger students. Just like that, I got into Gufei's car and chose a shooting route. Later, according to the pre-prepared script, I sat in the passenger seat, adjusting the equipment while communicating with Gufei about the shooting angles. It was a long-awaited peaceful coexistence since the college entrance examination. The shooting was also very smooth. On the way back, I quietly leaned against the car window, no longer speaking, just looking at the scenery passing by outside the window. Then I heard Gufei's phone suddenly ring. He subconsciously pressed the hands-free button in the car. The next second, Jian Chuyen's delicate voice came out. Gufei, today is my wedding. I forgot to send you an invitation. We've known each other for so many years and we're all friends. I'll send you the time and place on your phone later. With the sound of the phone hanging up, the car fell silent. I was considering saying that I would get out of the car and take a taxi back when he suddenly turned the car around. I knew that he still wanted to go, but unfortunately, he didn't make it, because the next second, We were hit by a truck. The feeling of the internal organs being displaced was really painful, but after the pain became numb, my feeling was actually relief. Before losing consciousness, I heard Gufei weakly call out Qianqian a few times first, and then that sentence that if he could do it all over again, he begged me not to ruin his fate with Jian Qiuyan. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the beginning of the first year of high school. I don't know what Gufei's "that's good" and the recurring dreams mean, but it doesn't matter anymore. The second time I met Gufei was on the day his mother was discharged from the hospital. I went to deliver the stewed soup on behalf of my mother. Then I chatted with her for a while and listened to her recall the past. She took out the old paper photos and picked up a group photo of Gufei and me after winning a junior high school competition. She said, "Time flies so fast. I remember that when your mother and I were waiting to give birth, we were in the same ward. You were born just one day later than Xiafei. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 years have passed. Qianqian, you're still as beautiful as when you were a child. Xiafei's father really liked you back then. He held you in his arms, and you neither cried nor made a fuss. You just knew how to smile quietly. Later, when you grew up a bit, you and Xiafei were stuck together every day. We adults also said that you two would definitely be together when you grew up." I smiled appropriately and followed her words. "Auntie, those are all things from childhood. They can't be taken seriously." She patted my hand and sighed. "It's Xiafei who doesn't have this fortune. Now the gap between you two is getting bigger and bigger. He really doesn't deserve you anymore." I smiled softly, originally intending to say that this kind of thought was wrong. "Auntie, there's no such thing as who deserves whom. What's important is whether two people are on the same path." She probably misunderstood my meaning and said to me, "I heard from Xiafei that he's preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination. The school is the target university he had in the college entrance examination, and it happens to be in the same city where you went to university at that time." I gently interrupted her. "Auntie, I'm going to study abroad. And I already have a boyfriend. I haven't had time to tell my parents yet." Just then, Gufei came back from outside and went to the kitchen to wash his hands. We were sitting on the sofa in the living room. I didn't know if he heard it, but he was standing there with his back to me, motionless for a long time. The air was quiet for a few seconds, perhaps to ease the atmosphere. Gufei's mother asked about my boyfriend. I smiled and talked about how I met him. He was a boy who participated in the competition with me. He was gentle, clear-headed, humble, and self-disciplined. He was on a direct admission program from bachelor's to master's to doctorate degree. He won national awards every year and also won awards in various competitions he participated in. He could write calligraphy, play chess, and play the drum set. Then I turned on my phone and found a photo of him giving a speech at an academic forum. After showing it to her, I said, "He's the person I like very much and also my fellow traveler." The conversation ended here. Later, on the way back, I inexplicably thought of Gufei, who rolled up his sleeves in front of the sink. There were faint scars on his forearm. That was the tattoo that had been removed. Instantly, it was as if time had intersected. The name that had been crossed out with countless horizontal lines on the draft paper in the past was the signal for his relationship with Jian Qiuyan to start. Now, the faint scar from the removed tattoo on his arm had become the symbol of their end. The sudden burst of hormones in that youth had finally ebbed like a tide. 11. The entanglement between Gufei and me has almost come to an end here. I was indeed looking forward to the fate he would face after choosing another path. I wanted to know how he would reach the height of his previous life in a situation where every upward channel is now full of countless competitors. I also wanted to know how the family that had spent countless efforts cultivating him for more than 10 years would support him to pursue his dreams again. I have to admit that I just hoped to see him not doing well on this path to prove that my actions in the previous life were correct. But I also know that I was indeed wrong. There is a sentence in Charles Dickens' The Mystery of Edwin Drood: "The best kind of politeness is to mind one's own business. Once you interfere, you have to be responsible." So this time, I positioned myself correctly and didn't interfere in any of Gufei's choices without permission. In the previous life, he regretted not being with Jian Qiuyan. I don't know if he will regret those 21 multiple-choice questions he gave up in this life. However, the wonder of fate lies in the fact that there is never an optimal choice. No matter which one is chosen, there will be regrets. What's important is to bear the consequences of the choice. And now I have no interest in the direction of Gufei's fate in this life. After all, life is so long. Whether he makes a comeback and returns to the peak against the odds or stops here and becomes an ordinary person from now on, it has nothing to do with me anymore. I stopped looking back and continued to move forward. during the 3 years of studying abroad, I was in a long-distance relationship with my boyfriend. When Song Xiao called me, she smiled and teased me. Qian, you're going to be away for 3 years. Aren't you afraid that your relationship with your boyfriend will fade? While rushing to finish the deadline, I calmly replied, although my boyfriend and I are not in the same place, we are heading towards the same goal. Our souls will only get closer and closer. She made an ambiguous tisk sound, and then, as if thinking of something, changed the topic. Do you remember Jiang Qiuyan? A nouveau riche fell in love with her at first sight and crazily spent money pursuing her. Her wedding was so grand, she invited a large group of former classmates and received countless envious glances. Unfortunately, within less than 2 years, the nouveau riche became fickle and met a younger and more beautiful girl, so he spent money pursuing her as usual. After being cheated on, Jiang Qiuyan made a big scene, but the result was that the nouveau riche wanted a divorce. She didn't agree, and now the two are still struggling over the divorce. I listened casually and suddenly found that Jiang Qiuyan's face had gradually become blurred in my mind, besides remembering that she was quite good-looking. I couldn't recall any other deep memories. Even when she was in love with Gu Fei back then, I didn't think there was anything special about her. I never regarded her as a competitor either. After all, we were people from 2 different worlds from beginning to end. Probably seeing that I was a bit indifferent, Song Xiao stopped talking about her and instead said, Gu Fei took the postgraduate entrance examination twice and was brushed off by a difference of 0.1 points each time. What bad luck. Finally, after finishing the deadline, I let out a long sigh of relief and casually replied, oh, then I wish him good luck. Not long after that, one day, I suddenly received a withdrawn message. It was from Gu Fei, but I didn't ask. Until I returned to China, a former friend held a welcome back party for me. Gu Fei, who came along, asked me if I had seen that message. I shook my head and said that I was sleeping in the middle of the night. He smiled bitterly and explained, I had a fragmented dream and mistook the dream for reality. I'm glad I didn't disturb you. After the college entrance examination results were announced, Gu Fei and Jiang Qiuyan got together. The middle of the night when he had the dream was daytime on my side, but it no longer matters. Just like that withdrawn message when Qian, did you like me? The answer no longer matters. What's important is that now I will walk further and further on my own path, and my lover is right ahead on the path. Looking at his back as he turned and left after looking at me deeply, thin and lonely, my boyfriend came over holding a small cake and softly asked me who that was. I withdrew my gaze, took his arm, and smiled indifferently. Just an ordinary friend who has known me since childhood. Story 2. 3 days after I fled my arranged marriage, my fiancé committed suicide in the new house he had prepared for us, leaving all his wealth to me. While sorting through his belongings, I stumbled upon walls covered with photos of me and the floor stained with mottled blood spots. His assistant told me, Sir had loved you for many years. His depression was severe. Only thoughts of you, only seeing you, could bring him some relief. Every detail was shocking and suffocating, yet inexplicably saddening. So, given another chance, facing the same arrangement to marry my childhood friend, I smiled and refused. I'm not leaving. I wanted to see just how foolish the man who loved me dearly could be. Shenmu died on the 3rd day of my escape from the marriage. My father and brother, with faces full of regret, had just informed him about my fleeing when they stepped out of the estate and received the news of Shenmu's suicide by wrist cutting. His death was pronounced despite attempts at resuscitation. A will already in place left all his possessions to me. Receiving the call from my brother while I was far away in North America, my expression gradually stiffened. In my eyes, Shenmu was a jerk who suddenly showed up demanding marriage, a man I hardly knew, yet every detail seemed to suggest that he had been in love with me for many years. At the lawyer's request, I hurriedly returned to the country and stiffly received Shenmu's urn. He had no known relatives, and his assistant, looking solemnly at the square urn, softly told me, Sir had loved you for many years. His depression was serious. Only by seeing you, by remembering you, could he feel a bit better. I thought, if you married him, he wouldn't be so pessimistic, but I never imagined. His voice trailed off, not blaming, but my heart inexplicably clenched. The assistant handed me a key. This is the estate Sir prepared for you. It's also the new house he personally decorated, the place of his suicide. The estate was large, with a green lawn and even a racetrack, styled in my favorite royal blue. The furniture, the decorations, all catered to my tastes. Inside, one room was filled with my photos, from my sophomore year in college to the present, captured almost every moment by this man's camera. The floor bore the mottled blood stains left by his wrists, faintly giving off an odor of blood. Every detail was shocking and suffocating, yet inexplicably saddening. I couldn't help but feel angry again. He loved me. Why didn't he say so? Barging into my home like a robber, demanding a marriage alliance. How could I ever feel secure marrying him? Did he want his tragic end to make me feel guilty, to never forget him for the rest of my life? Dream on. I donated all the inheritance, including the villa. The photos on the wall were torn down by the cleaning lady, casually thrown on the floor, covering the bloodstains. Shenmu's brief and legendary life thus completely vanished from this world. It took me 3 days to accept the reality of being given a second chance. 3 days ago, Shenmu had just come to my house, forcefully demanding a marriage alliance. Upon hearing this, my childhood friend did not hesitate to tell me to run, to escape to North America for a couple of days. In my past life, that's exactly what I did, but in this life, remembering those walls filled with photos, I gazed at the bloodstains marring the ground and calmly shook my head. I don't want to leave, I said. I need to find him and ask why he wants to marry me. Shenmu's business was thriving. When I went to see him, he was still in a meeting. His assistant personally came down to greet me and asked me to wait a moment in the office. The boss will be down soon, I softly acknowledged with a hum. True to their word, Shenmu arrived quickly. Before I had even finished a cup of tea, he hurried over, fastening his undone cufflinks as he walked. When he saw me, he stopped in his tracks and calmly called out, "Miss Gu." His expression was cold and distant, as if he was looking at a stranger. His indifference left me speechless. After a moment, I asked softly, "Mr. Shen, my father said you want to marry me. Why is that?" "To marry if I wish, no reason needed." I was at a loss for words. How was I supposed to respond to that? Slowly, I stood up and picked up my bag. "Then I guess I'll be leaving now." Shenmu's expression flickered, showing a rare hint of surprise. "You're leaving just like that?" I looked at him expressionlessly, watching his face turn pale, a layer of self-defeat cloaking him. Yet, he stepped aside to let me pass. If I wasn't sure that he had feelings for me, I would have thought he was toying with me. I sighed and took the initiative to grab his sleeve. "How about we have dinner together?" The interactions between Shenmu and me were so intense that even his assistant was on edge. As I was leaving, the assistant kept apologizing. "Boss is not good at chatting with girls. Miss Gu, please don't be mad at him." "I'm not mad." I smiled and told him, "I actually quite like him. His looks are really my type." The office door was ajar. Through the small gap, I clearly saw Shenmu touch his face. Looking stunned, I smiled slightly and said to the assistant, "I've asked your boss to have dinner with me tonight. Remind him not to stand me up." The assistant nodded hurriedly, as if I might change my mind any second. I walked out of the company's main entrance in my high heels. Just then, my childhood friend called. Seeing the contact named Brother Liangsheng, I calmly hung up, my thoughts drifting as I gazed at the clouds. Liangsheng has always treated me well and truly cared for me, but whether it's a childhood friend or just a friend, eventually, they all fade into the journey of life. Just like in a past life, he had a lover and children, learned to avoid me, so even when I was trapped in the mountains with a survey team and called him, his wife mocked me, calling me an old maid who couldn't get married. When his wife was insulting me, Liangsheng was right there, silent. I died there, never knowing what he really felt. That evening, Shenmu arrived early for dinner, but the atmosphere was chilly. I struggled to make conversation, but he was like a conversation-ending machine, showing no interest in anything. I was exhausted and placed my cutlery heavily on the table. "Mr. Shen, this way, it feels like you don't really want to start a family with me." Shenmu's Adam's apple bobbed as he looked down and apologized. "I'm sorry, I started, hoping he would finally open up." "I don't want to hear this," I said, feeling somewhat helpless. "You have managed the company for so many years, undefeated at the negotiation table, with a flawless insight into human nature, and yet now it makes me feel like you're not really interested in me." Shenmu's face turned pale, his fingertips tightly pinching into the palm of his hand, faintly showing traces of blood. "Don't overthink it," he said. "I'm just not used to being this close to you." His sudden, confession-like statement took me by surprise. His nervousness and loneliness, as well as the blood marks from his palm, didn't seem feigned. I suddenly remembered what his assistant said in my past life. "Sir's depression is quite severe. He only feels a bit better when he sees you, Mr. Shen." I became very curious and asked him directly, "Did we know each other before?" Shenmu's lips trembled slightly, his eyes instinctively dodged mine, and he turned his head towards the transparent glass windows of the restaurant. We did, when I pressed further, but Shenmue clamped his mouth shut, refusing to say more. I felt a bit disheartened and began eating my steak, no longer trying to make conversation. Shenmue remained silent, seemingly oblivious to the awkward atmosphere. He just stared blankly at my lips and neck, his gaze following the red wine I swallowed, slowly moving down to my throat, then stopped, restrained by his upbringing. I glared at him. He turned his head in panic, his face a bit pale, his lips accidentally bitten and showing fresh red blood. I was exasperated. If you want to look, just look openly, don't be sneaky. We're about to get married soon, Mr. Shen. Can't you do something more aboveboard? I had said, annoyed. He had taken so many photos of me, hired so many people to watch me, and even bribed my nanny. If it weren't for his tragic death in my past life, I would have already reported him for being a creep, but his assistant also said that Shenmue was ill. I should be more patient with a sick person. I took the initiative to grasp his hand, ignoring his momentarily stiff expression, and gently wiped the blood from his palm with a damp tissue. Such beautiful hands. Don't harm them anymore. Okay. Shenmue didn't respond, just stared at my eyes for a long while, then asked quietly, are you willing to marry me now? Did you give me an option not to? His Adam's apple bobbed. Actually, if you don't want to, you could run away from the wedding, or find you and scold you, saying I would never marry you. I stared into his eyes. I have no problem doing that, but Shenmue, what would happen to you? The outcome was clear. He would die. In my past life, I never understood how someone could be so weak and incapable, to fear even a meeting, and to end his life so casually just from the news of a runaway bride. But still, I couldn't bear the thought of his death. Shenmue was undoubtedly a genius, with a sharp vision, yet his background remained a mystery. Despite all the digging, no one could uncover his origins, leaving everyone to only watch as he seized the internet boom and rose rapidly. Amidst the light-hearted laughter, he left the old families of Jiang City gasping for air. But such a person, in the prime of his life, he committed suicide over a woman. In his past life, Shenmue became the laughingstock of the public, crowned as the top love-brained person, due to deliberate hype by others. He was subjected to very harsh criticism. I don't want all this to happen again. On the way home, I thought a lot with my mind blank. Eventually, looking at Shenmue who was driving emotionlessly beside me, I decided to talk to his assistant in a couple of days. I really don't know how to get along with this guy. And then, his illness. Is there really no solution? The black Rolls-Royce stopped in front of my villa, and coincidentally, I met Liangxing coming over with pastries. Shenmue squinted his eyes. Should I go down and say hello? I turned my head and asked him. Liangxing is a very good friend of mine. No need. Shenmue leaned over and unbuckled my seatbelt. You go home. Though I said no need, my heart suddenly turned cold and bitter, as if I had swallowed a bitter herb. I grabbed his wrist. He and I are really just friends. Don't overthink it. I won't, really. I turned my head and saw him gripping the steering wheel tightly, his veins faintly showing. I touched his fingertips. Can you tell me if there's anything bothering you? Don't keep it to yourself. It makes things difficult. Pressed by me, Shenmue's Adam's apple bobbed, and he turned his head away, speaking slowly. I don't really like him. Then you don't have to interact with him. I patted his head encouragingly. He's just my friend. You don't have to force yourself to like him, and in the future, as husband and wife, we'll have a relationship many times closer than with him. If you mind my relationship with him, I'll also pay attention in the future and keep some distance from him. Shenmue seemed surprised. You would distance yourself from him for me. Why not? I looked at Shenmue with a smile and said softly, we are husband and wife. After all. Shenmue was stunned, seemingly dazed. I seized the moment and moved closer to him, telling him, you see, things can be resolved only when spoken about. Right. If you have any dissatisfaction with me, anything you want to say, you must tell me. Don't keep it to yourself and get half dead with anger. And I don't even know, it would be a pity. I could roughly sense that Shenmue didn't know how to handle intimate relationships. He applied the tactics of business negotiation to relationships, coerced my family into a marriage alliance, and when I approached him proactively, he was at a loss and didn't know how to respond. It's a bit scary how naive he is in relationships. It's okay, I thought, I can teach him slowly. Liangxing watched me get out of Shenmue's car, his eyes narrowing slightly, his expression slightly unfriendly. As the car drove away, Liangxing also approached me. You've decided to marry him. He's handsome, wealthy, reputable in our circle, and scandal-free. Why not marry him? But, he stopped mid-sentence, a bit panicked, a bit messy. with a touch of anger and impatience, he finally blurted out dryly, "Are you sure you like him? In this circle, how many marriages are out of love?" I shrugged. "He's suitable." Liangxing's eyes widened. "He can't even compare to the two of us." "Liangxing." I cut him off coldly. "I'm getting married. Some things shouldn't be said anymore." I walked home without waiting for him to respond. To be honest, even after living through it all again, I still couldn't figure out Liangxing's attitude towards me. At his best, he was incredibly kind, even going so far as to travel across small towns in Northern Europe just to buy me a necklace. At his worst, he couldn't even remember my birthday. In my previous life, I had suggested an arranged marriage to him, which he declined, saying he wanted to enjoy a few more years of freedom. Then, while making a snowman in St. Petersburg, he fell head over heels for a simple and sweet girl, and they got married and had a child within 3 months. His wife was quite bothered by my presence, and knowing this, I kept my distance and didn't contact him. In the end, it turned out to be a permanent goodbye. Liangxing would probably be a bit sad to hear of my passing. After all, when his father and stepmother were upset with his brother for slapping him, I was the one who sat with him on the rooftop, counting stars all night. The next day, when I went to see Shenmu, he was still in a meeting. Through the transparent glass, I could see his serious expression, and the suit he wore seemed to add an edge to his demeanor. I waited in the lounge and chatted casually with his assistant. The assistant was very discreet and kept beating around the bush about his condition, pretending not to know what I was talking about, which left me feeling helpless. "Don't you think it would be best for him if you were clear with me about his condition?" I asked. "But Mr. Shen doesn't want you to know," he replied. "He wants to remain perfect in your eyes." He added meaningfully, hinting that Mr. Shen really hoped I could rely on him. "What are you talking about?" Shenmu entered the lounge after his meeting, looking a bit tired as he adjusted his tie. "We were discussing how good-looking you are, and whether you've had plastic surgery." I leaned back on the sofa, smiling at him. "But your assistant said no, which is a shame. I could never match up to Mr. Shen's features," I teased. Shenmu was momentarily stunned. The assistant, knowing when to leave, had already exited and closed the door, leaving the room very quiet. I could hear the rustle of Shenmu's suit as he spoke in a hoarse voice. "Do you like this look? Is it that surprising?" I raised an eyebrow. Could it be that Mr. Shen isn't aware of his own charm? His ears reddened slightly as he awkwardly turned away, not looking at me. "Speaking of which, calling you Mr. Shen feels a bit too formal now." I walked up to him and touched his head, feeling the stiffness from the hairspray, which wasn't very pleasant. I bent down close to his ear. "Can I call you Big Brother instead?" Shenmu pushed me away abruptly. He suddenly became angry, and I couldn't understand why. Just as I couldn't understand why he liked me, he sat behind his desk, his back to me, his voice filled with resentment. "You should leave." "But I wanted to have lunch with you." "No need." Shenmu refused without hesitation. "I have things to do at noon." What was he up to? I studied him for a moment and slowly said, "Well, all right then. Just be mindful of the time. You shouldn't skip meals." I picked up my bag and walked out, pausing for a moment at the door. Under the assistant's anxious gaze, I heard the sounds of something being smashed and Shenmu's anguished growls. I had intentionally left the door slightly ajar. His pained, desperate growls mingled with the sound of breaking glass wafted through the door. I tapped on the desk of the assistant in front of me, my expression grave. "Are you still planning to keep things from me?" He hesitated, but I ignored him and pushed the door open. Walking in, Shenmu was in a particularly disheveled state, curled up in a corner, sitting amidst shattered glass. His fingertips were covered in blood, though it was unclear whether it was from digging at his skin or from the glass cuts. I stepped over the broken glass. My high heels crunched harshly on the jagged fragments, creating a grating noise. Shenmu, panic-stricken, kept his head down, trembling, refusing to look at me. I touched his shoulder, asking, "What's wrong?" He was too big and heavy, over 6 feet tall, and I couldn't embrace him fully. I could only squat beside him, carefully picking glass splinters from his palm with tweezers. Finally, Shenmu lifted his head, staring at me. After a long moment, he rasped, "Ugly, isn't it?" "What?" "Your hand." I paused, staring at his long, slender fingers that were barely covered with flesh, and couldn't help but mutter about his lack of self-awareness. "They look fine." I sighed, bent down to his fingertips, and gently kissed them. "They really do look fine." Yet Shenmu was still not pleased. He asked me, "Did you say the same to your exes before?" "What?" "Pleasing me, treating me well, calling me brother." Did all your exes get this treatment? I fell into an awkward silence. So, he had been upset over this. I thought it might have been something about his family, maybe something triggered by being called brother. Turns out it was just romantic frustrations. Such a strong and formidable person, yet so tormented by emotions. I patted his head and sighed softly. Fool. I've had quite a few relationships, after all. I'm good-looking and come from a decent family, attracting many suitors, and inevitably, a few have touched my heart. But in families like ours, dating and marriage are not the same. My dad told me early on that I could date whoever I wanted, but when it came time, I had to come back and marry properly. I helped him to stand and sit on the sofa, then let the cleaning staff come in to tidy up the floor, and poured him a warm cup of water. Bustling about, Shenmue held my hand. You don't need to do all this, MHM. I sat down, following his lead, deep in thought. He probably had already checked how many boyfriends I had before. I used to be playful, and I've done plenty of foolish things. If he minds, there's nothing I can do about it. You can't contact them anymore. Shenmue's abrupt statement interrupted my thoughts. I turned to look at him, seeing his serious face, and scratched his wrist. Are you ordering me? His body tensed suddenly, his breathing became shallow. As if realizing something, he nervously turned his head. If you want to contact them, at least tell me in advance, otherwise I understand. I cut him off. I won't contact them anymore. Then I asked him, were you really that upset just now because of this? Is it because of my ex? Shenmue didn't respond. I felt a bit helpless. If there's something bothering you, can you please tell me? Acting like this is really exhausting for me. Not saying anything, getting inexplicably angry. Throwing things around. I don't even know how to appease you. So, all your exes did a better job than me. Is that it? Shenmue suddenly interrupted me. His eyes bloodshot and his tone as petulant as a child's. How did things get to this point? I just wanted to have a good talk with him. I straightened up, feeling helpless, and asked him, if these things bother you, there's nothing I can do. I don't think having a few relationships is a crime. The past is the past. Why can't you let it go, Mr. Shen? Does digging into these matters and questioning me about them really make you happy? Fine, let me tell you, yes, I've been in relationships, and I genuinely liked them at the time. Does that make you happy to hear? Shenmue's eyes grew redder, and he looked like he was about to cry. Seeing me stand up, he anxiously tried to grab my sleeve, but I gently brushed him off. His voice sounded lost. I thought that if I just cooperated with you, we could get along well, but now I realize I just can't adapt to your way of thinking. I looked into his reddened eyes and slowed my tone. You don't seem happy with me either, and you've even hurt yourself. Shenmue, maybe we should call off the engagement. No. Shenmue firmly held my gaze, his eyes bloodshot as he tightly gripped my arm, repeating over and over, no calling it off. Our faces were so close I could see the fine hairs on his cheeks, and with his pitiful tone, it really felt like I was bullying a child. I absent-mindedly ruffled his hair and asked him once more, so tell me, why do you want to marry me? Shenmue's eyes flickered. He turned his head away subconsciously, but I caught his chin. Tell me, Shenmue, tell me. I stared intently at him. I don't want to be a fool who knows nothing. His eyelashes trembled, his voice hesitant. I want to marry you. Why do you want to marry me? Tears welled up in his eyes as he blinked at me, seemingly pleading and at a loss for words. I spoke for him. You like me, don't you, fool? What's so hard to say about that? I rubbed his cheek, trying to stand up, but he pulled me down onto the couch. The gentle facade was broken as he wrapped his arms around my shoulders. Sobbing softly, I'm disgusting like this, aren't I? A disgusting person like me liking you. That's annoying, right? I watched him in disbelief. What was he thinking? Disgusting. Does he hate it? Doesn't he know that he tops the list on the internet as the most desirable man to marry? How can someone like him feel so insecure? I feel like I'm beginning to see something. I hold his face, forcing him to look up and wipe the tears from the corners of his eyes. When my friends found out I could marry you, they were all envious, saying I must have accumulated luck from 8 past lives to marry you. How come it seems like a disgrace when it comes to you? He buried his head in my neck and shoulder without saying a word, but at least he stopped crying. I patted his back and sighed softly. Brother, can you please have a little more confidence in yourself? You own a 32-story building. Everyone outside respectfully calls you boss when they see you. And you're so handsome. Isn't it normal that I would fall for you? Shenmue shuddered slightly, hardly believing as he asked in a low voice, you like me? What else? Do you think a girl who comes to see you every day has nothing better to do? I patted his back, telling him gently, brother, a girl doesn't waste time on someone she's not interested in. You need to have some confidence too. You're really great, and we'll be great together, believe me. Shinmu began to cry again. His tears soaked my collar, warm and slightly tingling. You can't lie to me. I won't lie to you. My heart went soft, gently touching his earlobe, feeling the damp heat at my neck, and my heart pounding. He's unlike anyone I've dated before. It's intriguing, I thought. Shinmu is incredibly fragile inside. A single word, a gesture, an attitude from me could easily make him crumble. This shouldn't be the case for a CEO of a public company, yet, the reality is bizarre and absurd. He awkwardly stood up, his cheeks flushing furiously, yet habitually keeping a cold expression. Looking at me, he asked softly, "Are you hungry?" "A little." I stood up, straightened my rumpled clothes, pulling them down to cover my exposed waist. Shinmu turned his head away, his face as red as a ripe apple, making my heart flutter. Is he that innocent? This guy is nearly 30, surely he's not still. I suppressed my speculation and lazily made a request. Have your assistant bring something up. I don't feel like going out. Okay. Shinmu went out to instruct his assistant while I watched his tall figure from behind the light, gesturing at his long legs, realizing more and more how perfectly proportioned he was, handsome, well-built, wealthy, and not promiscuous. If it weren't for his mental issues, he probably wouldn't have ended up with me. I sighed. A significant reason for Shinmu's poor mental state is his insomnia. His assistant, extremely embarrassed, told me that Shinmu has been sleeping with my photo many nights. I didn't ask where he got the photo. The assistant breathed a sigh of relief, returning to Shinmu's side. I watched him work for a while, his ears turned red, and he seemed unable to concentrate. He put down the document in his hand. Is it that interesting to look at me? I nodded subconsciously, then after a moment, I remembered the real purpose of my visit. Can I visit your house, the new one you've been preparing? Shinmu was taken aback. Why do you suddenly want to go there? I just want to see it, considering I'll be living there in the future. He never refused me, simply nodding in response. He added, let me know if there's anything you're not satisfied with. Once again, I stepped into that elegant and noble manner, my eyes involuntarily moistening. The place was brightly lit, with the sun casting oblique rays that warmly embraced me. It was comfortable, not like in my previous life, where it was so cold it made me want to escape. I stealthily glanced at the locked room on the top floor to the right. I knew it contained my photos and his replicated oil paintings, clearly my face, with a black mole near the eye. I followed Shinmu into the bedroom in silence. The room was adorned with bright red sheets and quilts, embellished with a large happiness character. Standing by the bed, I felt a mix of laughter and tears. Finally, I tugged at Shinmu's sleeve and asked him, do you really want to marry me that much? His Adam's apple bobbed. Is there anything you're dissatisfied with? No, everything is perfect. I pulled him to sit on the bed. When did you start preparing all this? Just these past few days. He skillfully extended his fingers for me to play with, helplessly obedient, due to my protests. He had stopped using hair gel. His bangs softly lay on his forehead, less harsh, and more gentle, in the room next door. The place where he took his own life in his last life. Blood had splattered everywhere, but now, he held me, his chin resting on my head, his expression tender and content, like a well-fed beast lazily basking in the sun on a lawn. Had I managed to change his fate? The wedding was drawing near. I visited him daily, staying late into the night, which earned me several scoldings from my father for being unreserved. Yet, Shinmu seemed quite pleased. He was eating more, gaining some weight, his previously gaunt fingers now a bit fleshier. One day, as I was about to visit him, I saw Liangxing waiting at the company building. He grabbed me as soon as he saw me. He has bewitched you. I'll take you away. Let's go to North America. Are you insane? I shook him off in disbelief. Think whatever you want, but I can't let you sink any deeper. Liangxing clenched his teeth. You don't love him, Wan. It's just novelty to you. You can't just throw your life away. Whether I like him or not, what does it have to do with you? I found it strange. Don't you think you're being too nosy? Liangxing, with eyes red with bloodshot, suddenly looked sorrowful. His voice turned soft, almost pleading. What about an arranged marriage between us? Wan, you can't just abandon me like this. He looked as disheveled as if he had been beaten. His suit crumpled against his body, begging pitifully for my mercy. I remembered what my best friend had told me when Liangxing got married in my previous life. If only you had married first, he would have definitely gone crazy. How could simple, cute love at first sight compare to the bond you and he had before? He's only been so recklessly affectionate because you haven't been interested in other men these years, and he's your only friend of the opposite sex, Liangxing. I called his name with a complex expression. Raising my hand to pat the dust off his shoulder, let's go back. Let's pretend I didn't hear what you said today. I'm getting married soon. From now on, you should be more careful too, to avoid misunderstandings. He looked at me anxiously, tears falling. In a low murmur, he said, did I just miss the chance, with no way to turn back? We are friends. I used the words he once replied to me. To answer him, if you wish, we can be friends for a lifetime. When I pushed the door open, Shinmu was sitting on the sofa, a gloomy aura enveloping him. Why are you so late today? I ran into a friend downstairs and chatted for a while. I placed the snacks I brought on the table and turned to see him still looking sullen, which was strange. What's wrong? Shinmu looked up at me, his voice tinged with a hint of grievance. How was your chat with Liangsheng? How did you know? I was about to ask how he knew, but then I remembered the people he had around me and decided it wasn't necessary. I told him the truth. He came to find me, said he wanted to take me away. A shadow passed over Shinmu's eyes. I patted his shoulder, leaning against him lazily and said, but I refused him. I told him I wanted to stay with you. Shinmu slowly responded with an oh. Aren't you going to praise me? He turned his head. What's there to praise? I just declared my loyalty to you in front of another man, I said, pretending to be annoyed. How can you not show any appreciation? Shinmu swallowed hard, looking at me bewildered. After a moment, he stood up and took a box from the drawer, opening it. It was a huge blue crystal necklace. It looked familiar. Is that the one from the auction in Hong Kong? Yes, I laughed out loud. The necklace was beautiful and valuable, but Shinmu had spent 3 billion on it. The headlines that night were all about the fool who spent 3 billion on a necklace. Why did you buy it? You like blue, he said quietly. I think it suits you. Thank you, brother. I hugged his neck and rubbed my cheek against his. The auction was 2 months ago. Why bring it out today? You seemed unhappy today, he said softly. I was planning to give it to you for your birthday, but I thought it could cheer you up now. When have I ever not? I remembered my feigned anger from earlier and shut my mouth, amused. This man really can't tell the difference between a girl being genuinely upset and just pretending. I poked his cheek. I'm not upset, really, but I'm still very happy now. Brother, I'm really starting to like you more and more. Shinmu's cheeks reddened as he lifted me onto his lap and carefully kissed my forehead. He's not someone who understands girls well. Yet his assistant keeps reminding me, urging me not to agitate him. I couldn't help but ask, has his condition worsened these days? No, the assistant hesitated, then said, actually, Sir's mood has improved significantly. He no longer needs sleeping pills at night, so why do you keep pestering me? Sir has been better because you've been around. If you grow tired and leave, the consequences could be severe. He pleaded with me. I don't know what your intentions are for getting close to Sir, but please, don't just walk away casually. He might really lose his mind, and might even die. I added that last part in my mind. I patted his shoulder. Don't worry, I care about him more than you do. I'm no savior, nor am I a professional psychologist. All I can do is my utmost to ease Shinmu's suffering. I just want him to be a little happier. When the mood is good, everything else should follow. When Shinmu's father approached me, I was somewhat surprised. After all, this was the first time I heard about his family. His father, who came from the capital, wore a similar suit and bore a resemblance to him, yet had a completely different demeanor. His sinister presence was downright terrifying. He was blunt right from the start. Miss Gu, I want you to leave my son. I was a bit stunned and took a sip of tea to calm down before asking, so how much are you willing to pay? 2 billion. Enough to get your family through this crisis. I paused. I wasn't even aware that my family was in crisis. I studied him quietly for a moment before firmly stating, ours is true love. You'll need to offer more. The necklace Shinmu bought for me alone cost 3 billion. Your offer isn't tempting enough. He scoffed. Do you think staying by his side is something good? He looked at me mockingly. Have you been in touch with your ex-boyfriends? Why don't you find out how many of them are still alive? And that Liangsheng. Do you think Shinmu will let him off? And your brother? Do you think being blood-related to you will save him? Let me tell you, Shinmu won't spare him either. Your love is so grand, yet it's everyone around you who suffers. You're kept in the dark like a fool. Isn't that ridiculous? My brows furrowed, disgust filling my eyes. I believe in Shinmu. He's not that kind of person, whether he is or not. Why don't you find out for yourself? He smiled confidently. They say the son is like the father. The tricks I used on his mother, he will surely use them on you exactly as I did, believe it or not. Then your wife must not be with you anymore. No, on the contrary, we are very happy together now. He smiled proudly. She can't escape, has resigned to her fate, and still has living family members she can't bear to leave behind. She's very obedient now, very docile, waiting at home every day, soft, gentle, all her claws and teeth cut out, tame to only rely on me, obedient like a bird in a cage. I suddenly woke up. It was just a dream. The north wind howled against the window glass, snapping me out of my daze, as I realized my back was covered in cold sweat. In my entire life, I've never met anyone as detestable as Shenmu's father. Just thinking about his smug domestication theory makes me want to vomit. It's still afternoon, and I'd just woken up from a 3-hour nap. When I turned on my phone, I was greeted with 16 missed calls from Shenmu. I called him back, and before I could even speak, I was interrupted by his anxious voice. Why didn't you answer my calls? Did you see him? What did he say to you? Do you not want me anymore? Are you thinking of leaving, calling off our engagement or breaking up with me? Stop guessing, I said, cutting him off. I didn't do any of that. I just fell asleep. Don't overthink it. Shenmu went silent, his breathing heavy. After a moment, he said in a pitiful voice, Wan, I'm scared. His voice was so sorrowful and pitiful that it overflowed my heart with sympathy. Don't be afraid, I sighed. Although he's your father, to me, he's just a stranger. I still trust you more. Do you understand? Shenmu didn't respond. He just said softly, Wan, I want to see you. Shenmu came to pick me up at my house. As soon as I got into the car, he pulled me onto his lap and hugged me tightly, burying his head in my neck and pleading with a cry in his voice. Don't believe a word he says, I replied, patting his back. I only believe in you. Shenmu looked up, tears clinging to his eyelashes. Under my guidance, he has now become quite adept at expressing his emotions in front of me, whether he's feeling wronged, sad, or anything else. He knows to share it with me instead of bottling it up inside. Like now, he murmured, can you not meet with him again? I was really scared today. When you didn't answer my calls, I felt like I was going to die. Don't say that word. I covered his mouth. You're going to live a long life. Interrupted. Shenmu looked momentarily dazed. I ruffled his hair and smiled slightly. If you don't want me to meet him, I won't. After all, I only met him because of you, brother. You need to have more confidence in yourself. I grasped his hand. I don't believe anything others say about you. I only believe what I see, what I hear, and what you tell me. You really are an excellent person, brother. You're amazing and you need to believe in yourself, understand? Shenmu is very insecure. I don't know what he went through in the past that made him so timid and fragile, especially in romantic relationships, where he flutters about like a headless fly, feeling unworthy of anyone's love. These days, whenever I get the chance, I compliment him, from his looks to his knowledge, from his wealth to his status, even saying his fingernails are particularly cute. Only with enough confidence can he stop being like a startled bird, anxious and unsettled all day. I hope that Shenmu can find relaxation and joy in our intimate relationship, not constantly tense, worrying about how to please me, which must be exhausting. Brother, I'm already an adult now, I said, hinting at my capability to handle complex emotions and relationships. Having your own judgment means not changing your opinion of me just because of a careless remark from someone else. I leaned in and hugged Shenmu's shoulders. I like you, and I can speak for myself. Whatever the issue, I'll ask you directly. I definitely won't leave, and you're so outstanding. I don't want to let you go and give someone else the advantage. Shenmu's eyes sparkled like diamonds, radiant and bright. Since I first met him, the aloofness that once cloaked him had diminished, replaced by a warmer, more humane touch. He no longer resembled the withered wood that seemed ready to perish at any moment. My presence had finally made a real impact on him. I could roughly guess that Shenmu's family background caused him a lot of pain, but when he hugged me and softly said he disliked his name, I was still a bit shocked. He hates that I came between him and my mother. And he named me hoping I would die soon. Like the sunset in the west. From his birth, his father had wished him dead. How could someone be like that? My heart felt bitter as I held his hand. But your mother loves you. She doesn't love me, Shenmu said with a bitter smile. She's just trapped by me. She's different from you. She's a very traditional woman, even though she's well educated. She stubbornly believes a woman's place is to support her husband and educate her children. After I was born, all her rebellions became empty. She couldn't leave me because of her sense of responsibility, but on her own, she couldn't provide a comfortable life for me, so she resigned herself to her fate. His voice was frantic as he spoke, his eyes reddening, moist as if veiled by a layer of mist. It was heart-wrenching to see. But none of this is your fault. You shouldn't have to bear the consequences of your father's actions, I told him earnestly, feeling the warmth of his chest. Brother, you're amazing. Truly outstanding, your mother would definitely be proud of who you are now. Shinmu gave a wry smile. He patted my head. Only you always see the best in me. So, Won, you're all I have. He held me tightly, his chin resting on top of my head, pleading earnestly, you must never leave me. I'd go mad without you. Opening my email to see a barrage of spam, I momentarily wanted to meet the person responsible. How much hatred must one harbor to not bear seeing their son happy, determined to ruin it? I took a deep breath. The emails were mostly threats or included photos of my exes, mentioning how miserable their lives were, earnestly advising me to stay away from him. I didn't even look at them, just deleted all the emails right away. Lately, I've been busy preparing for the wedding, frazzled by the guest list from my family. As a result, I've had less contact with Shinmu. So when I received a frantic call from my assistant in the evening about his suicide attempt, I was caught off guard. For a moment, I felt as if I had plunged into an icy cave. Just before his suicide attempt, Shinmu had met with his father. I don't know what was said, but it triggered his fragile nerves. Right after his father left, Shinmu slit his wrists. Fortunately, he was found in time, outside the emergency room. I hugged my shawl, squatting against the wall on the floor, my teeth chattering uncontrollably. How could there be such a father? He must have known Shinmu was psychologically fragile, yet he pushed him mercilessly to the brink. When Shinmu was wheeled out, he was hooked up to an 4, his face deathly pale. The little color he had regained these past days was completely wiped out. Sitting on a chair beside his bed, I stared blankly at him for a long time until he woke up. As soon as he opened his eyes and saw me, his voice hoarse and rough. He called my name, Won. I ignored him and got up to call the doctor. After the doctor took away the 4 bag, I stood by the bed, silently staring at his pale face, scaring him. He anxiously said, if you're upset, just scold me, or even hit me, but don't ignore me like this. Won. He seemed really afraid of this cold violence. Every time I gave him the silent treatment, he'd panic like a child who hadn't grown up, clutching at my sleeve, begging for forgiveness. But this time, I didn't plan to indulge him. I ignored him all day, watching him lost and despondent, sinking into confusion and self-loathing. The scars on his wrists were gruesome, reopened and bleeding again, prompting even the doctor to advise me, consider the patient's feelings first. I know, I said softly, don't worry. Back in the hospital room, Shinmu sat blankly, his gaze empty as he stared out the window. He was too fragile and disheartened, like a body without a soul. Shinmu. I stood 3 meters away and called out to him softly, my tone emotionless. He seemed to realize something, closed his eyes in pain, and refused to respond. I didn't care about his evasion and told him directly, let's call off the engagement. The vase on the bedside table shattered, his expression twisted momentarily, then quickly fell into decay and utter despair. He rasped my name, Won, trying to crawl out of bed to reach me. His wrist wounds tore open again, blood gushing. I stepped forward to press down on his wrist, gently touched his disheveled hair. What do you want to do now? Lock me up like your father would, trained to obey only you, or would you rather hurt yourself than lay a finger on me? Won. Shinmu looked up at me, his eyes wide with panic. I answered for him, you would choose the latter, wouldn't you? I leaned down and kissed his lips, a kiss devoid of desire, and as I pulled away, I pinched his cheek. Brother, you're not like your father, and I'm not your mother. We won't end up like them, brother. Shinmu, my dear, my love, what exactly are you afraid of? I felt like I could glimpse a bit into his father's psyche. He knew, even if Shinmu's mother had resigned herself, she had obediently followed him all her life, yet she was far from happy. Their marriage was not as blissful as he had imagined. That's why he couldn't stand to see Shinmu's happiness. The ease with which Shinmu found the love he wanted made him feel like a failure, and even drove him to rage. He kept emphasizing to me that Shinmu was his son and would surely end up doing the same despicable things as him. He constantly tried to brainwash Shinmu. I checked the surveillance footage. The last thing he said to Shinmu before he left was, son, just you wait and see. As long as you're alive, one day you'll find yourself treating her just like I treated your mother. By then, your mother's present will become her future. At that, I couldn't help but laugh sarcastically. So, he knew how miserable his wife, Shinmu's mother, was. A misery so profound that threatening another girl with the same fate was considered a powerful deterrent. Shinmu didn't want me to end up like his mother. He didn't want to hurt me and despised the dirty genes within him. In a moment of desperation, he chose to end his own life without hesitation. Do you feel how different you are from him? I asked earnestly, kneeling by the bed and looking into Shinmu's eyes. When he learned of your mother's departure, he resorted to coercion, threats, and even imprisonment, doing all sorts of disgraceful things, but you only hurt yourself. I took his uninjured right hand and intertwined our fingers. Brother, do you think this version of you could ever hurt me? Shinmu's Adam's apple bobbed, his eyes reddened and filled with sorrow as he looked at me. But I'm afraid, Won, you're so good, so proud, I fear you might end up like my mother. We won't, I reassured him again. Brother, we will be happy in the future. Human nature is no more than that of a fierce bird, harboring the most primitive and ugly desires. But what matters is the ability to suppress and control them. You think you might one day hurt me, but you've controlled that thought, preferring to end your life rather than lay a finger on me. Brother, believe in yourself. Humanity has evolved over so many years, we are no longer the beasts in the forest living off raw meat. I looked into his eyes. And please believe in me, will you? I am not your mother. I don't hold on to outdated virtues. I choose to stay by your side only because I love you, very much so. Won, brother, I repeated, earnestly telling him again, please believe me. I've been through many relationships and have become indifferent to romance. I also despise those arrogant, misogynistic men. If I hadn't met you, I probably wouldn't consider dating again, just like in my past life, lonely, dying alone on an adventure. Having experienced too much in my youth, I found everything bland, until I met Shinmu. He truly respected me and was so obedient, acting like a selfless tanuki in my presence. From the initial pity to now affection, everything progressed so naturally, no girl could dislike him. I arranged to meet Shinmu's father. In the coffee shop, I gazed at the man in the suit and gently asked him, I heard that your wife used to be a diplomat, quite formidable and impressive on the international stage. Narrowing his eyes, he asked, why bring this up, now, confined to the house? She has become a housewife, her figure and thoughts both dwindling, unable to keep up with the times, which you find repulsive. You've come to realize that it was her vibrant spirit you loved, not the nagging, tiresome woman she has become. Right, shut up. He tried to interrupt, I ignored him, and with a smile, I continued, sadly, it was by your own doing that this tragedy was crafted. I didn't know if he had affairs, but judging by his demeanor, it seemed likely. The passionate love once shared had fizzled out, lost to mundane domestic squabbles. He must have regretted, wondering why after getting everything his way, perfection still eluded him. Let Shinmu go, I said softly, he suffered enough because of you and your wife. Your dissatisfaction shouldn't be his burden, if you remain oblivious. I smiled faintly. Mr. Shin, my politeness now is only because you are Shinmu's father. If I find out you mean to harm him, I won't let you off. He didn't react angrily. Instead, he slumped into his seat, appearing dazed. I voiced the thoughts he might have been harboring. Do you wonder if your wife had been as tough as me? Things might not have ended this way. You're mistaken. If I were in her place, facing someone like you, it would end in mutual destruction. Mr. Shin, anyone falling into your hands would end up miserable. This angered him. He jumped up, ready to strike, but my bodyguard intervened and subdued him. It was quite embarrassing for a man of 50 to be pinned down by a bodyguard. With a light chuckle, I repeated my earlier words. Mr. Shin, I am not your wife, not a soft target you can manipulate. I'll say it once more. Stay away from Shinmu, otherwise. I poured a cup of scalding coffee over his head. I will never let you go. Although I don't condone violence, I must admit, it can indeed solve many problems. He couldn't contend with me, the scion of an old, powerful family in Jiangqing, and could only disappear, harboring resentment. After the wedding with Shenmu, he playfully rolled around with me on the marital bed, laughing foolishly like a child. Wan, he murmured in disbelief. I've finally married you, idiot, I said, patting his back. You've had too much to drink, go take a shower. He went off to the bathroom with a silly grin while I slipped into the lingerie I had bought especially for our wedding night, posing on the bed as I waited for him. I must admit, compared to Shenmu, I really am quite something. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up like an untamed dog, eagerly rushing towards me. Exhausted as I was, he remained spirited, drawing close and showering me with gentle kisses. While kissing, he chuckled and affectionately called me baby. I drifted into a deep sleep. That night, I had a terrible dream. I dreamed of Shenmu's past life. After I ran away from the wedding, his father came to provoke him, boasting proudly, "Look. You'll soon be unable to resist dragging her back and locking her up, just like I did with your mother. Stop pretending. Your true nature is that of a greedy madman. Whatever your mother is now, that will be her future too. She will be driven mad by your torment." I saw Shenmu in agony, clutching his head and repeatedly growling. lying in a room filled with my pictures, his expression fierce, repeatedly saying no, he didn't want to hurt me, so he resolutely chose to end his own life. I woke up startled, my back drenched in cold sweat. Opening my eyes, Shinmu was holding me, his sleeping face serene. I touched his handsome brows and eyes, then got out of bed. Standing in front of that locked room, I stealthily took his bunch of keys and tried them one by one. The door opened. I stepped into a room that nearly mirrored my nightmare. Shinmu's suicide was probably a self-obliteration, born from the immense pressure and his disgust at his own genes. He watched the walls full of my photos, his wrists bleeding profusely, feeling life slipping away, his gaze tenderly touching upon my smiling face. In his last moments, his eyes were also filled with me. I remembered the trending topics from a past life. Top lover really wasn't wrong at all, even now. I have no idea where Shinmu's love for me originated. He wouldn't tell me, no matter how many times I asked. Perhaps there should be some secrets between spouses. If he didn't want to talk about it, I wouldn't ask further. Wan. Turning around, the previously sleeping Shinmu stood behind me against the light. He seemed a bit downcast, asking me nervously, "Do you think I'm a pervert?" I shook my head and walked over to grasp his cold hand. "Why are you awake? You weren't here." He sounded so aggrieved. The bed was cold. I couldn't help but laugh. When we first met, he had a cold and distant demeanor, unsure of how to respond to me. Now, he had become quite adept at acting spoiled. Whether children or adults, anyone who experiences favoritism naturally shows a whining, childlike demeanor. Realizing this, he tugged at my sleeve again, cautiously asking, "Do you think I'm a pervert?" "Not at all. It's just quite novel," I spoke honestly. "I didn't expect you to have liked me from so early on. You're not upset with me. Why would I be upset when you like me?" Shinmu's cheeks flushed as he wrapped his arms around my waist. "You're so good to me. Does that mean you'd indulge me no matter what I do? I just trust that you wouldn't do anything to harm me." I turned around and wrapped my arms around his neck. "I trust your character. For someone who would rather hurt himself than harm me in the slightest. I refuse to speculate with any malice. True affection is rare in this world, and mutual love even more so. I cherish Shinmu's feelings just as much as he cherishes mine. When a favored cub feels threatened that its favored status might be stolen, it will go mad without hesitation, just like now." Shinmu's attitude towards Liangxing. It took a great deal of effort to keep him from throwing away the gift from Liangxing. Liangxing had sent me a set of pajamas he knitted himself. Embroidered with a small heart on the chest, it was both tender and suggestive. Shinmu wanted to go crazy when he saw it, but I glared at him, and he sat back down on the couch, looking dejected. I ignored him and picked up the pajamas to look at them. "What's so good about it?" he muttered, then leaned in and hugged me. His large frame enveloped me, his warm breath on my neck, a bit disgruntled, but he dared not speak out, only able to softly call out, "Wife, it's all right." I held his hand with a headache and handed him the pajamas. "You take care of it, don't throw it away." It would be too awkward to let him know, so Shinmu cut it up, venting his frustration, cutting it to shreds. I watched silently for a moment, then couldn't help asking, "Do you have a grudge against Liangxing?" He paused, then grunted in a low voice, "I've always disliked him, despite being so close to you. He's still entangled with other women, not faithful at all. He talked about his girlfriend. I should have a boyfriend too." Shinmu's double standards almost made me laugh, but it didn't seem right, so I held it back. "It doesn't matter now." I chuckled softly to comfort him. "Now that I'm with you, he can't get in the way, right?" Shinmu's face flushed completely. He turned his head away and quietly murmured in agreement. I didn't specifically treat his depression. I just treated him as a normal person, trying my best to make him happy. Pampering him like a child, giving him plenty of security. He naturally got much better. The inferiority and sensitivity brought by his family upbringing, I completely compensated for him, making him increasingly dependent on me and more confident. My assistant talked to me about it. "Actually, I always feel that it's not good for the boss to attach his personal emotions to another person. But there's really no helping it. He might just be love struck." He didn't dare to complete the sentence. And I didn't help him finish it. Understanding was enough. "Actually, I also think it's not good. His spiritual core is someone else, not himself. So if something happens to me, he wouldn't be able to continue living." I sighed, but life is never perfect. Since I've accepted him, I should also accept the diversity of human character traits that he represents. I don't want to force him to change anything. In a normal intimate relationship, both parties should derive mental pleasure and richness, not painful change. I hope he can be happy. As for the rest, those are trivial matters. On our third anniversary, I found out I was pregnant. Shenmue was very nervous, even slightly despondent, too anxious to sleep. I couldn't help but ask him what was wrong. He held me, clearly upset and pitiful, and said, "Honey, I'm afraid I won't be a good father. What if I can't raise our child well? Will you blame me later?" "Never," I stroked his head. "You will always be more important than the child. A child born into a family like ours will certainly not starve. What they become in the future, how they live, that's up to them. Brother, we are the ones meant to be together for life." His eyes widened, as if he wanted to say something, but he struggled to articulate his thoughts. After a moment, he muttered, "Wife, you're so strange. Perhaps, in East Asia, once people have children, they often see themselves as candles burning for their children, spending their lives paving the way for them. I don't want that. Life is just a few decades. If we don't live for ourselves, how dull that would be." Shenmue and I are different. He longs for a family. In his mind, a gentle wife and children, whether obedient or noisy, represent the most beautiful vision of happiness. "Actually, I think you'll do very well," I told Shenmue. "All the things you yearned for in your childhood will be fulfilled in your child, and you will treat him very well. And treating the child well will, in turn, heal his own once sad and difficult childhood. That's why I'm willing to have this child for him." Shenmue held me and whispered, "You are the most important. I just want a baby, and I will treat him very well." I smiled and said to him, "I believe you. I believe he will do well. Be happy, and live a long life. I will be there with him, watching him achieve success and enjoy a happy life. We will have a very good future." Epilogue. Shenmue never told Gu-won that the first time he saw her was behind the high school campus, near a foul-smelling ditch. He was dirty and smelly at the time, starving, rummaging through a garbage bin for food. Then he met Gu-won. She looked like a fairy then, standing at the end of the alley in a white dress, watching him quietly for a moment. Her eyes showing compassion, she pulled out 2,000 yuan and gave it to him. "Go find something else to do." Her voice was gentle. "Stop doing things you don't like." Shenmue didn't know why she helped him, maybe out of sympathy, pity, or perhaps just because she was passing by and was bored. All he knew was that Gu-won saved his life. With that 2,000 yuan, he bought a ticket to another place, worked day and night, and with his exceptional talent, made a fortune in stocks during the last wave of the internet boom. When he returned to Jiangqing, he was in a suit and surrounded by a group of advisors, and Gu-won, she had blossomed beautifully, changing boyfriends every 2 months, living life lavishly. Shenmue wasn't surprised. He felt that a cute and lovely girl like Gu-won was born to be cherished by many, but it also made him sad. Perhaps due to the baseness and shamelessness in his genes, he often felt a beast-like impulse to rush over, lock her up, and force her. That wasn't right. He was also trying to restrain himself. This restraint led to a mental struggle. He developed a severe mental illness. Forcing a marriage with the Gu family was his desperate decision. He longed too much to embrace that divine girl. Loneliness tormented him daily, nearly driving him to extinction. But if Gu-won was unwilling, he wouldn't force her. He didn't want to become a shameless man like his father. Then, one day, the young girl threw herself into his arms. Shenmue felt it was all worth it for this lifetime. In the 6th year of their marriage, their child was 2 years old. Shenmue dreamt of his past life. He died in that cold, gloomy, and dreary room filled with haze. He saw Gu-won placing a vibrant rose next to his corpse. That night, Shenmue spent the whole night smoking on the balcony, his eyes bloodshot as he stared at the bright moon in the sky, round like the mooncake his wife made last year. Shenmue felt an inexplicable sadness. If his wife had run away from their marriage, then his death would seem quite natural. The normally composed Shenmue couldn't fathom the extremities and despair of that time, but felt it was somewhat normal. A madman, after all, could do anything, and in this life, his wife hadn't run away. "What's wrong?" Gu-won wrapped her arms around his waist and nuzzled him. "You've seemed off since this afternoon." Shenmue felt a bit wronged and wanted to act coquettishly with his wife, but when he opened his mouth, he didn't know what to say. He lifted Gu-won into his arms, she exclaimed, her legs instinctively wrapping around his lean waist, and she couldn't